us know when we're good to go. Okay, thank you. Good evening. It is 7 o'clock, so I'm going to call us to order and invite everyone to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item is approval of our agenda, and just as a reminder, this is a special meeting that was rescheduled from last week, so we can't make any changes to the agenda this evening. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda as it is.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Meg. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Stacy. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. And actually, I should have said before, Tim, I want to make sure I can hear you. You're still muted. Okay, hold on. We'll wait a second. I'm sorry. I want to make sure that you can speak as well.
Yeah, it's on your end. You guys have to unmute.
There we go.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yes.
All right. Thanks. All right. We're going to move on to approval of the consent agenda, and this is quite a list this evening. It's approval of the January 2nd, 2024 Board of Education regular meeting minutes, January 9th, 2024 Board of Education budget meeting minutes, January 11th Board of Education budget meeting minutes, January 17th Board of Ed and Board of Selectmen joint meeting minutes. It's accepting a donation from Grin and Barrett Enterprises to Gildersleeve Elementary School in the amount of $1,102.45. Donation from Art Rich Photography to Portland High School in the amount of $367.30, and an approval of out-of-state field trip for the PMS Band and Chorus to Six Flags on May 31st, 2024. Is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve item 4A through G.
Thank you, Meg. Is there a second?
A second.
Thanks, Kim. Is there any discussion about any of these items? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. All right. That was a yes from Tim as well. So that was unanimous. We're going to move on to audience of citizens, and we'll invite anyone from the audience in person or online who wishes to address the board at this point. There will be a second opportunity for audience of citizens and comment at the end of our meeting, and we just request that when you come up to the podium, or if you're making a comment online, that you please state your name and address for the record, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less so we have time to hear from everybody. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board at this point?
I have two online.
All right.
Hi. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yep.
Oh, wonderful. Remind me, I need to say my name and address. I can't remember.
Yes, please.
Right. My name is Erin Livensbarger, and I live at 247 Middle Haddam Road in Portland. I support a budget increase of, 5%, 6% if needed for the schools this fiscal year, and I wanted to make sure the Board of Ed members knew that I was a citizen that supported that. I understand also the need to be fiscally responsible and how hard this job is for all of you, but not at the cost of our teachers, staff, and students. When I hear that the budget increase, there are lots of reasons for it, but if it was due to contractual insurance needs, I worked in nonprofits. I understand that insurance premiums go up every year. And so I think about the commitment our town must make to honor and respect our teaching staff, our school staff, for their health and personal needs. They do a yo person's job every day for our kids, and we need to support that. I also worry that the budget increase is possibly due to supporting our most at-need kiddos for their IEPs, their mental health support, social workers, learning needs. And I'm very moved to let the Board of Ed know that I support you all taking a budget to the town, to the Board of Selectmen, that shows the support for what our students need, even the most at-need ones or at-risk ones. I know these are two major expenses, and insurance and support of IEPs and kids' mental health needs are often out of your control. You know, if we see insurance company premiums go up, like, you have to deal with that. It's in contracts. And I just wish there was more support at the state level for mental health funding, and it didn't fall on the towns, but that's a whole other conversation. But I just wanted you all to know that I support you taking a budget that's more than last year to the Board of Selectmen, and I really applaud your efforts and all the hard work that you all are doing. So that's it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Liz Hibino from 19 Scenic Drive in Portland. And I just want to echo basically everything that Erin just said. It's really upsetting to hear about all of these proposed cuts, but I know that you're all, doing the best that you can and trying to balance everything out. I'm kind of hoping for some magic to happen so that some things can be restored, especially the librarian position. And I just also want to say that as a parent, I completely support the 5% increase or more, and that, just please not to cut anything else that you absolutely don't have to, because this will be negatively impacting our students and our teachers. So thank you. Thanks for all that you do.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else at this point?
Yes.
Online? We do, okay.
Hi there.
Hi.
Okay. Hi, my name is Darcy Parmalee. I'm at 18 Foley Road. And I would just like to share that I am also in support of the increase in the budget. I work in town, but I don't work for the district. I sub daily in the special education preschool, and I just want to say how much we need every ounce of every support of every para and then some. So I know it's really, really difficult. I understand. I know insurance. But I really hope that we are able to find out a creative way to work around this and support the teachers and paras and staff and everyone that goes into those schools every day for all of these kiddos. It's a lot right now. It's really heavy. And I hope by looking through everything with a fine-tooth comb, like Liz said, maybe some magic will happen. I'm very concerned for my own kids. They're both in these age groups that seem to be affected in a way per class size. My son is a 4th grader, so he's in that big bubble group. I'm concerned about that going into biz and then thinking that they might have to share a librarian. The WIN groups that they affect, I know the ripple effect that this could have, and I'm really, really hopeful that the town supports the 5% that we've had to increase, and then that we can find some way to keep what we have without having to cut more. I appreciate all that you all are doing, and know that it's being heard. There has been a lot around town. I know the weather has been really tricky, but there has been a lot of movement, and a lot of people are doing a lot of research and reading and listening and finding the podcasts and asking. I do PTO in town, and a lot of people have been reaching out. So please know that it's being heard on more than one front. And that's that's a good thing. We need to get the word out, and we need to help support as best we can. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Darcy.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Samantha Levante. I reside at 46 Cedar Terrace. I just want to, again, piggyback off of what Darcy said. I applaud all of the effort that everybody has put into creating this budget. I don't envy the position that you guys are in or Mr. Britton is in. I am speaking to young boys, one of which is already at Valley View. As you probably have heard or read in the letter that I wrote previously, I was upset with the 5% budget. I would like the Board of Ed to consider moving forward with a budget that at bare minimum maintains what we have currently, and I know that is a lofty ask. No reductions in staff or programming that is already currently in place. And while I am quick to be biased for my own children and say keep staffing ratios at the elementary level because my kiddo is there and in the kindergarten classes right now, and the teachers are just so fantastic. And I know that there's a possibility of his first grade, one of those sections being cut. But I also know that if we cut positions at the middle and high school level, it's hard to reinstate those positions down the road. I know a request like this is, near impossible. It may seem that way, but I don't think it's fair to write it off as that just yet. In order to make that happen, I was just wondering, I know I've been following the budget meetings and the podcast, and I was just something to throw out there. I don't know, is there a way to reevaluate the health insurance plan that the district is on as a whole? And I know that they had talked about going out to bid to lower the increase from 19 to 12%. And I don't know if there's talks about switching plans entirely. I know districts around us have done just that successfully, and they have found comparable insurance plans and have saved significant funds that can go back to saving teacher positions. So I don't know if that's something that's going to be discussed tonight. I don't know if there's other grants that our district can be applying for to save the $500,000 that we already lost. I know there's no going back and getting that $500,000 because a lot of that's pandemic money. But I would like the board to consider moving forward with a budget that maintains what we at least already have. I've grown increasingly upset to see other budget plans from districts around us where proposals are first being given to maintain what they have. And we have great educators and we have great kids, and we need to continue to be a community that puts a value into our children and their education. And I know that's what we have been doing. And young people choose our town to live in based on our education system. That's what me and my husband did. And we want all the services we want our children to have the services they deserve. And if we don't, I fear we're going to slide behind. And maybe all we're trying to do is tread in the water and keep what we have. But thank you for listening to me, and thank you for considering and hearing all of our concerns. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Samantha. That's it from online. Is there anybody in person? You're welcome to join us at the podium.
Alicia Strong from 381 Gospel Lane. I'd like to talk about a couple things. As a parent, I'm definitely worried about the cuts. And one thing I just want to bring to your attention, I know it has been discussed, is specifically WIN groups. I have two children, both in second grade and below, that need different things from their WIN groups. One is in enrichment, and he needs to be pushed, and he is testing out of all these things. And my other one needs a little bit of extra help. And they've been amazing at evaluating my children and getting them what they need in such a personal way. And I'm extremely concerned that if you take two teachers away, and then you take our librarian away, that not only are our WIN groups going to get way bigger, they're going to get a lot less individualized for our kids.
Is your thing?
I'm sorry?
Oh, yeah, no, I said my
Oh, no, it's okay. And I think at this level, that can hurt their learning and how they advance in a huge way. I'm very concerned about that. I also agree with making sure that, I don't want to use the word nearsighted, but I want to make sure that we don't make cuts that make us fall back, and then we can never get these people back into the system. So I understand that we have to do these things because we don't have enough money, but if they're not the right thing right now, they're not going to be the right thing next year. And what if next year we have to cut more? And I moved to this town. My husband's back here, he's a teacher in East Hampton, and he sold me on this town. I did not want to go over that bridge, but he sold me on this town because of our class sizes, because of the wonderful community, and because of our schools. And I came here and I started my family here, and I don't want to have to think about going to a private school. I don't want to have to think about paying for my kids to go to East Hampton because the class sizes get too big, or because my kids aren't getting what they need. And I understand that there are so many people in this town that don't have children, or their children are out of the school system and they don't want to pay for this, but this is the burden of a town, and we have to come together. And I would hope that people would take a minute to see that cutting this many positions is going to directly affect our kids. It's not a little bit, it's not this like, oh, we'll get over it. No, I truly feel that this is going to impact our kids in such a negative way, and I'm fearful about that, especially if going forward next year we would have to cut more. And maybe if we can go to the rest of the town and say, we have no control over the rising cost of insurance or over X, Y, and Z, that everything else is going up, so why should our kids have to suffer because of that? Because that's not under anyone's control. So I don't know what the solution is, but I truly hope that we can figure out a way to come to at least a happy medium so that our kids, don't suffer. So thank you. I appreciate all of your time. I know this is so difficult. And let's see how tonight goes.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else with us who wishes to address the board at this time?
Hello, I am Parker Strong, 381 Gospel. Alicia is my wife. And a few things that I wanted to talk about. East Hampton had their first proposal meeting last night, and it was 7.23%. So I think some of our cuts were a little ahead of the gun, I guess you can say. With a town like this, I know there's a lot of parents, and we've talked to a lot of people that maybe we'd like a chance to vote on it a little bit sooner than just making all these cuts right off the bat. We're here for education. I grew up in East Hampton. I love the area. And I felt really strongly about Portland schools as well, which is why we're here. And, our kids are our most valuable assets, and, we don't own them, but that's where our future comes from. The future leaders and a lot of different things. So I think it's very important. As for insurance, I've heard some rumors that they maybe came in higher than expected. I think I don't know the workings of how the insurance has worked here, but we at East Hampton were on the state healthcare plan, and it was great, and the premiums were reasonable, and we felt we had great care. I don't know if you guys have looked into that at all. Seems like you have, based on that thing. So I did want to throw that out there. It seems like you have, so I apologize. I wasn't aware of that. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to say too, our policy our board policy doesn't permit board members to respond to comment as they're happening, but many of the concerns that you're raising will be addressed later on in the meeting for sure. Is there anyone with us in person or online who wishes to address the board at this point? Keeping in mind that there will be a second opportunity for comment in our second audience and citizens towards the end of the meeting. We're okay at the moment? All right. Thank you, everybody, for weighing in. We are going to move on. We do not have a Portland Public Schools Spotlight lined up this evening, so we'll look forward to the next one in February. Have our student reps been able to join us online? Oh, wonderful. Good, I see Caitlin. And Liam is with us as well. That's great. Wonderful. Whenever you're ready, Caitlin and Liam.
Over at the high school, the musical is in full swing. Matilda will be premiering on the 22nd of March this year. With the cast rehearsing, sets being built, and the pit practicing, it is bound to be a good show. The entire Portland High School community is so proud of our amazing cast and crew. As well as the musical, students are enjoying the numerous clubs and activities offered at the school, which includes Math League, Art Club, Engineering Club, Student Senate, Model United Nations, Unified Sports, National Honor Society, and many more. All of these extracurriculars offer amazing opportunities for students to get involved.
Winter sports are now entering the second half of their seasons. Seniors will be honored at their respective senior nights in the coming weeks, starting with the wrestling team tomorrow at 6 p.m. Regarding wrestling, Portland High School will be hosting a wrestling invitational all day Saturday, and 12 teams are expected to compete. Good luck to them and the rest of the winter sports. Lastly, the second semester of the year starts tomorrow. Full year classes will remain the same, but many students will switch to their spring semester or half-year classes.
Wonderful, thank you. Did you have anything else, or is that all for tonight?
Nope.
Okay. Board members, are there any questions for our student representatives?
Thank you.
Thank you both. All right, we'll move along to communications and updates. And Dr. Britton,
All right.
get us started with your report.
Sure. So I emailed you all today just so for planning purposes. We're going to schedule a special board meeting 5:30 Thursday, right? That way, we have tonight to deliberate around the budget, and then certainly if we get through it tonight and action is taken tonight, then we can cancel it. But otherwise, I just kind of put that on the books. We're under a little bit of a time crunch because the budget is due into the town per the town charter on the 31st. So if we finish up our deliberations tonight and action is taken, we can cancel Thursdays. Otherwise, 5:30 Thursday, special board meeting. Tricia brought her daughter to the airport today, so she didn't post the agenda for that, but I'm sure she's hearing me and saw the email, so she will. And then otherwise, just you'll put a pin in Tuesday the 30th. I'm thinking we might need another special board meeting then too if we don't finish up Thursday. But by Tuesday the 30th, that's our deadline. Like we need to have that done so that Stephanie can work all the numbers together. I think we'll have it done by Thursday. But otherwise, if there were any concerns about that, we're under a little bit of a timeline here. Are you comfortable with that?
Would the 30th be
It's a Tuesday.
It's a
an
Tuesday.
earlier time, or would that still be the 7 o'clock time that we normally?
I think we'd keep it to 7 o'clock time.
I'm unavailable on Tuesday.
Okay, so maybe we can, let's see how it goes tonight and Thursday, and then otherwise, we can talk more. Then if Tuesday's not going to work for everybody, we'd need to either do Friday, Monday.
Yeah.
Or if anybody wanted to come in over the weekend.
But backing up a step,
We can do
do we have a quorum? If we need a meeting on Thursday at 5:30, would we have a quorum? Are folks available?
Thursday, yeah.
For Thursday.
I'm on train, if I can be on,
You can be on Zoom.
I can do that.
You can do that, Tim?
Beautiful.
Great.
I can do that.
Okay, yeah, I want to make sure that if we need more time, we have that time and that everyone will have, I'd like us all to be able to participate when we're ready to vote.
Absolutely.
Okay, Great.
All right, so we have that locked in, and Tricia
Yeah.
will get the agenda posted up tomorrow, so
Perfect.
we'll be out there.
And thank you, Tricia, for that.
Yeah, thank you for that. All right, couple of thoughts. I just wanted to, let everybody, I appreciated everybody came, and I enjoyed the Great Blue presentation. I did post the actual presentation, a video of the presentation, and then a podcast I made where I kind of share some of my thoughts about the presentation. It's all on the website. I can't say I'm entirely surprised, but, was very interested in those results. I am meeting now with, just to let you know, Mike Serrano, Bryce, and one other individual are coming Thursday, February 1st at 3 o'clock. Going to meet Bob, going to meet with me. I think Laurel and Ryan want to stop by. We're going to meet at Valley View. Mike is, Serrano and Fryer now need to do their work. They need to take a look at Valley View and, give us some blocking diagrams and some real figures about what the survey results were to be implemented and we were to consolidate to one school, what that would look like. So I will certainly keep you posted on that. Once we wrap up our deliberations about the budget, I think we do need to pivot as a board to some discussion about the path forward. I think that the last piece of the puzzle was, what does the community think about the idea of consolidating schools? And I think that imperative is now clearer than ever as we, consider the insurance increases and the costs for all the things we do here. So again, I just want to reflect on a little bit on that Great Blue results. All of the information is out there for anybody to see, including a video, the actual report, and a podcast, and that we are now moving forward with Fryer and engaging them in putting some numbers, some actual numbers, and getting some renderings and some visuals and some blocking diagrams. It won't be an actual blueprint, but some visuals about what a consolidated to Valley View would look like with all of the schools on one campus.
Charles, have you got a sense from the Board of Selectmen or Ryan of the timeline surrounding an additional committee to look at repurposing properties?
So the Board of Selectmen did pass a motion and form a municipal studies building committee. Dave is on that committee.
It's only partially appointed at this point,
Right.
but Meg did make a comment during the last Board of Selectmen meeting, kind of asking what the timeline was on that, and Ryan said the intention was for it to move forward. They also said that they would be discussing the results of the survey at their next meeting, which, John, when's your next meeting? Is it February?
The first Wednesday in February.
The first, okay, so February 7th. Their next meeting isn't until February 7th, so folks may be interested in attending that if they're able, because it sounds like there'll be some conversation about
Right.
all of this.
And then, of course, we have to remember the board needs to deliberate too. And of course, you have the ed specs plans, and ultimately the action that the board needs to take is on the ed specs plans. The action on a plan moving forward would be a prerogative of the Board of Selectmen. These are town buildings, but it is a prerogative of the board to endorse the education specifications that would guide curriculum, instruction, and teaching and learning in that facility. So again, we're going to need to pivot to that pretty quickly once we move through this challenging budget discussion. Okay, to that, and again, I will keep you posted certainly on that conversation that Laurel will be joining, and so will Ryan on February 1st with Fryer Architects. To that end, I do have in the packet for you some letters I received expressing concerns similar to the concerns you heard about in the audience of citizens tonight. One is from Meredith Galliano. I hope you took a look at that. She's the library media specialist at Brownstone, and does reflect on the implications of that potential reduction. Also, Sarah McLaughlin is our BCBA. Right? And I did meet with Sarah today and reminded her that we haven't identified her position, but if that were to come up in conversation, Sarah wants to make sure you understand what the implications of that reduction would be. Did also want to share with you a letter from Miss Lavante that is in here. You can take a look at that. And I have two late ones that came in today. Tricia curates my email now, so three there. Yeah. But I'm not sure if it would be appropriate for me to read them into the record, just because I didn't include them in the packet, but I do have them and think it would be important for folks to hear them.
Sure.
So why don't I do that? And I know that I've got, if you could help me out, I've got Alicia Holloway and Annabelle Marushak. If you could find the third one for me, I didn't see that.
Yep, there's one from Melissa Kelly
Melissa Kelly, great.
that came at 5:54.
Why don't I do Alicia and Annabelle, can you do?
Sure.
Sure. So we just read these into the record, and then I'll get you hard copies of them. Certainly I want to make sure everybody's voice is heard and input is considered. So this is from Alicia Holloway. Dear Board of Education members and Dr. Britton, my name is Alicia Holloway. I live at 24 Foley Road, and I'm also employed at Brownstone Intermediate School as a special education teacher in the Bridge program. I am in the unique position this year as both a parent of a fourth grader and a case manager to several more fourth graders in the Portland Public Schools. As Dr. Britton shared during his initial proposed budget report at the January 9th meeting, our current class of 2032 is proportionately larger than other elementary school grades with over 100 students. Additionally, this class has a large caseload, at least 20% of students receiving specialized services and Tier 2 interventions. Historically, we have been able to add a 6th section each year for this class, allowing the smaller class sizes and more opportunities to individualize instruction. However, with the current budget proposals, we are not only not adding a 6th section, but reducing paraprofessional support and cutting library media specialist position, an invaluable resource considering the changing literacy needs in the age of technology and social media. I am concerned about the impact of these changes will have on classes that have already been affected by COVID shutdowns during kindergarten, followed by hybrid learning during first grade. Though no fault of their teachers, who provided high-quality learning support, and with a Herculean effort, these students are still recovering from those interruptions. This is a class of students with high needs, both academically and socially emotionally. They deserve the same quality education they have received throughout their academic year. I understand the expense of having 3 elementary schools in a small district with fluctuating enrollment. I anticipate many of these budget concerns will be resolved when we are able to consolidate schools. Until then, however, our current students deserve the same level of high-quality instruction. Specialized education and general education students alike benefit from effective Tier 1 support, including small classes and robust opportunities for early intervention. Limiting these supports with larger class sizes, less paraprofessional support, and reduced staff for the 3 elementary schools, especially the class with the largest enrollment, is a disservice to all of our incoming 5th graders. Please consider supporting this vulnerable group of students by adding a 6th section and/or maintaining our library media specialist at Brownstone. The vision of the graduate applies to all Portland students, and the class of 2032 needs your support. Do you want to read that one, and I'll
Sure.
share the other one?
This is an email from Melissa Kelly, 238 Cox Road. Good evening, Dr. Britton and Board of Education members. Let me first start by saying that I can only imagine how hard this budget has been for all of you to work on, as it's been hard enough to listen to the thoughtful decisions you all have been working through. I'm writing to encourage you to send a minimum of a 5% budget increase to the Board of Selectmen. Sending any less is doing a disservice to our school community. The impact and severity of cuts of anything less will be detrimental to our students and staff. As a parent of 2 current and 1 future student, as well as someone who has spent a substantial amount of time volunteering in our elementary schools, I can assure you that we absolutely cannot do without some of the positions a lower budget would surely cut. The majority of my volunteer time has been scattered throughout our K-6 classrooms, as my son has grown through each of those grades and is now in our middle school, and my daughter is now in 3rd grade. I also had the pleasure of spending 2 afternoons a week in the Valley View Library for the majority of the 2021-22 school year, and have helped in the Gildersleeve and Biz libraries from time to time. I can assure you that losing a library position would be a tragic loss for our district. These librarians do so much more than read and check out books. They teach our youngest students about coding, how to start a research project, and so much more, all during the short once-a-week library class. In addition, our elementary librarians are WIN teachers, makerspace leaders, STEAM teachers, and lead extracurricular activities like the Biz News. There are so many other cuts that will have a negative impact on our district, but this is the one that is hardest for me to swallow as the parent of 2 bookworms and a huge fan of libraries in general. This is the one that I can personally speak to because I've been in those spaces and seen all of them in action. As a parent of 3 children, I will absolutely support a budget increase that will help our schools support our students in the manner they deserve. Our students need our support, and they need yours. Please don't take less than a 5% increase to the Board of Selectmen. Thank you.
And the final one I have here is from Annabelle Marushak. Board of Education, I'm speaking on behalf of myself and many of my peers. The student body is aware of the current situation with the budget, and we understand that you are making some very difficult decisions regarding the budget. We know you don't want to be making many of the cuts that you are, and understand that it is very difficult and stressful responsibility. However, recently I've been informed about our health teacher, Ms. Laverty's current situation. Many of you aren't present within PHS to truly understand the impact that Ms. Laverty has on us. She is an outlet, resource, mentor, teacher, and emotional support for the students. Ms. Laverty is one of the most trusted adults in our school. Everyone knows that if they have any problems, that they can go to her. Cutting her position in half would remove this outlet from us students significantly. Not to mention, Ms. Laverty teaches us about some very important and uncomfortable topics. Myself, along with my peers, have all mentioned how we couldn't imagine learning about these very important topics like mental health from anyone else. Board of Education, please realize that taking away Ms. Laverty from the students here at PHS may have very negative impacts. Like I said before, she is loved and trusted outlet at school, who I personally know has helped many students with issues that we are facing. Like I said before, we are very aware that you are making some very difficult budget decisions. We understand that making budget cuts is about positions and not people behind those positions. However, Ms. Laverty is a backbone of PHS and a trustworthy outlet to students. We are pleased asking you to reconsider cutting Ms. Laverty's full-time position and to try to find another solution. I couldn't imagine PHS without Ms. Laverty. Thank you for your time, Annabelle Marushak. Okay, I have two other very quick ones then. I thought you'd be very interested in seeing that the challenges we are grappling here in Portland are not unique to us in any way. I thought you'd be interested in seeing the CADE policy agenda, the CAPS, excuse me. This is the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents. This is something we're sharing with our lobbyists and certainly is the focus of the superintendent's legislative agenda. If you haven't already, please take a look at the concerns that are outlined here, the kindergarten start age and the recommendations about how to address that, the reading challenges, special education excess cost, here, on that one, and then the education cost sharing grant. And of course, the school indoor air quality, right? All of these things, boy, could have been written for Portland, and it's also something every school district in the state is grappling with. I thought it was very well done, and I thought you'd appreciate seeing that. The other piece of information Stephanie actually found, and I included for you, is an explanation of the excess cost grant. I went over that in some detail in the presentation, talking about the threshold and the fact that we're only being refunded at the 70%, which is woefully inadequate. I cannot stress that enough to any legislators, anybody hearing my voice. 70% and raising the threshold to the $90,000 and reducing that payment to 70% has devastated us this year. You're going to be hearing Stephanie talk a little bit more about that last year. It's unconscionable what is happening with the costs of special education and the burden shifting to the local property tax base. So those things I thought would be interesting to you. They reflect some of the budget drivers, many of the budget drivers and challenges we're facing next year and wrestling with this year. But,
thank you for these. And the CAPS policy agenda is right in line with the CADE policy agenda for this year as well. So I think we'll be hearing plenty about each of these items.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. We, I believe, have Eric with us this evening, our Director of Curriculum Instruction and Technology. Is Eric on Zoom?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Eric.
I understand tonight's agenda is really packed. I prepared and presented to the board in the packet my January report. I'll keep it brief and just ask the board if there's any questions you'd like me to address about any of the information in the report.
Eric, I'm curious to hear a little bit more around K through 3 literacy. It was one of your points, and I think you talked about maybe providing more detail.
I did. Did you have specific questions, or did you want an overview of kind of where things stand?
I mean, we can delay this conversation for the budget conversation if need be, but I really am curious, knowing that we took the 30,000 out for K through 3 literacy, and it's, as far as I understand, we're expecting that we'll probably be granted the waiver to not need to purchase a new curriculum. I want to hear your thoughts and if there are any updates on that.
So I'll just remind the board, all districts are under mandate to comply with the right to read legislation effective July 1, 25-26. So we were planning for implementation of a new program July 1, 2024. That at the time we made that decision, the state had made 7 options available to districts. All of those options were comprehensive programs that would have required us to do a complete stop of everything we are currently using and do a complete start of a brand new comprehensive program. We did not apply for a programmatic waiver. We applied for a financial extension. We were granted that extension, which was initially for July 1, 2024, and then was extended to July 1, 2025. On December 1st, the state concluded their review of all districts that had applied for full programmatic waivers. Again, Portland did not. Those were districts that were making the claim that what we are currently doing, although it's not one of the 7 approved programs, we can effectively prove that it's closing the achievement gap in literacy. The state received over 85 waivers rather, of districts seeking programmatic exemption, and they approved 15 districts for full exemption. In other words, they gave 15 districts permission to continue doing exactly what they're doing and make no changes. At the very moment the state did that, the approaches that those 15 districts were using and were fully approved to continue using became permissible for all districts. That provided Portland with an additional 9 options, what the state is calling compendium options, or a combination of programmatic pieces that add up to a comprehensive approach to teaching K-3 literacy. Within those 9 approaches, Portland has many of the elements in those compendiums already in play and working to good effect. So at the moment that news was announced, we decided, whoa, we don't need to shelve things potentially that we're already doing and are working well. We don't need to completely stop what we're doing and completely start something new. We now have the potential option of continuing to use what we have that's working and to supplement that with 1 or 2 layered on pieces. And so when that decision came out on December 1st, we very quickly made a strategic decision to pause our planned pilot, which at the time was the best of 7 options available, and take some time to explore the 9 compendium options that were suddenly made available to us that would have dramatic effect on reducing change lift for teachers, disruption for students, and cost to the district. And we still have plenty of time to explore those new compendium options with the goal of making a change for July 1, 2025, and without any risk of losing any grant funding that we've obtained associated with the right to read legislation.
Thanks, Eric. That answers my question.
You're welcome.
Eric, can I just ask a little bit about your first bullet point where you're talking about the plan that our district is mandated by SDE to produce in terms of our recruitment strategies to yield a more diverse set of candidates? I know that you and Charles had been attending some workshops, trying to get some new strategies, and I'm just curious if you have any updates for us about how that's going.
I do. So you're going to hear a little bit of frustration from me on this. We have earmarked within the continuous improvement plans that the board saw and voted in support of this year, that we have intention to increase diversity of representation within our faculty and staff as we hire into our position, into positions as they, become available in the district. Through legislation, the state passed a mandate that all districts need to develop a plan to increase educator diversity. This mandate it kind of came out, I guess, Dr. Brenton, would you say springtime of last year? It started coming down the pipeline to us. And the state offered a couple, I wouldn't say workshops on how to go about this work. It was an overview of the legislation and really a communication of two resources the state put together, which were effectively toolkits of how to develop a plan. The state has since put out a template that all districts have to use that comprises the plan. And the template asks districts to come up with strategies to increase educator diversity. I have a couple of frustrations. One, the time frame is that these plans have to be developed, approved by local boards of education, and submitted to the state for not even approval, I will say filing on March 15th. We have been told by the state our plans will not be reviewed. They'll be reviewed for compliance, that we've completed all necessary components, but we won't receive necessarily quality feedback about our plans. We will be required to make sure that our plans are updated every year if any information changes. But the state, to this point, has not provided a lot of support in terms of helping districts understand what are effective strategies to increase educator diversity. We all want that. We're dealing with a limited pool of diverse candidates, financial and other constraints that stymie our abilities to increase educator diversity, and the mandate to develop a plan with strategies doesn't effectively help districts to accomplish the goal of increasing educator diversity, right? It's have a plan. Well, we would like assistance, more assistance than what the state has provided us to date in the development of these plans. We found the toolkit to be lacking. As I indicated in the report, nonetheless, we will have a plan. We've already identified specific action steps where we plan to undertake and have already begun undertaking in the district to move in this direction. We'll commit those to a plan. We will meet the state mandate. Am I hopeful that the articulation of plans within Portland and other districts helps to solve the problem? I'm not. I think this is a systemic problem that needs a lot of collaborative and collective effort between the state and districts, and the mandating of plans to me falls short of what's required for true solutions. Nonetheless, I spoke with Dr. Britton. I've begun work on drafting our plan. We have a schedule to present that plan in draft form to the leadership team for their feedback, to the teachers union for their feedback, and to bring it forward to the board for a first draft read at our February 6th meeting. And then I've also petitioned the state that we are hopeful that the board would be able to vote. We would present it to the board for a first read and to solicit feedback at our February 6th meeting, with the intent of the board potentially voting to take action to approve our plan at the March 19th meeting. So we would miss the deadline for state submission by 4 days, but for good reason. That's our board meeting schedule. And I'm waiting to hear back from the state as to whether or not that's permissible. I don't see it being a problem.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, do we need to have a special meeting for this?
That would be unfortunate.
If we have to, we will, but look, 4 days after the deadline for a check in the box is...
And I will just add that we were having a conversation with the Education Committee today, and CABE has a legislative action item requesting that they come up with a better plan and some financial resources. I urge them to look at what works really well. The rests do really well with recruiting and training through their master plan, master teacher plan, and the pipeline is full of individuals of color and diversity. If that's where we are able to obtain diverse staff members through the rests, I think that should be funded, and we should be given some additional funds to encourage small rural and suburban districts to hire people of color and diverse backgrounds. But there's a lot of moving pieces here, and this has been going on since 2015. I think the Department of Education had a really good plan, and COVID upended it. There were going to be in-person trainings and there were going to be a lot of things, and they ended up with a guidebook which is inadequate. And so as we move forward, and I said today in our district, the will is there, but we're cutting positions, and so where are we going to be in the scheme of hiring people of color and diverse backgrounds when we're laying people off? And that's a problem. So
I think you'll see in our plan, I'll just end with, listen, it's not going to be a million things we're going to do. We're going to focus on a couple things that are within our reach and our capacity to be able to do in realistic terms. I look forward to presenting that to the board. I think you'll see that it's carryover language from our continuous improvement plans because this isn't a new desire for us.
Right.
The guidebook is 100 pages long and insufficient at best.
Yeah.
And, just to go to the point of strategies, if everyone had ready-made strategies at their fingertips, then we'd either be neglecting strategies that we had already possessed, or in reality, we're struggling to come up with the strategies that can help us to attack this very real issue.
Right. Thank you, Eric.
Yep.
Are there any other questions for Eric this evening? Nope. Thank you so much for your report.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move along to new business. Item A is to accept the donation of a buddy bench from the Community Foundation to Valley View Elementary School. Charles, do you want to talk us through this?
Sure, this is very cute, and it worked out perfectly. We have a buddy bench at Valley View, and you can read in here a little bit about what the buddy bench is for. And
so cute.
It is cute. And unfortunately, our current buddy bench is in need of repair and replacement, and it just so happened that the Community Foundation of Middlesex County reached out to us and has a buddy bench that they would be willing to donate us. The world's lined up perfectly on this. I spoke with Jessica, I spoke with Bob. We would be happy to accept this and use it to replace the one that we currently have. So, but I would need a motion and would need to ask the board to accept the buddy bench from the Community Foundation of Middlesex County.
I'll make a motion to accept the donation of the buddy bench from the Community Foundation of Valley View Elementary School.
Thank you, Sarah. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Kim. Sounded like it was also seconded by Dave and Stacy, so Tricia, you can take your pick. Wonderful. Is there any further discussion? Nope. All right. All in favor? Aye. All right. That was unanimous. Thank you for the support for that. That really is wonderful. And thanks to Riz for reaching out about that. That's exciting. Next item is to accept a donation from Andover Schools for a compressor to be installed at Valley View.
Yeah, this is great.
Also
and
really cool.
Yeah, thank you to Bob and thank you to Perfect Temp. So we have two compressors at Valley View that are used as part of the mechanicals for our heating system. One failed, Bob can certainly answer questions and talk about the expense of it, but it's not good, right? It's a failed compressor. Our contractor, Perfect Temp, was aware that they had replaced compressors in Andover and had an extra one, and said, we could reach out to the superintendent of Andover and see if we can have that one that's otherwise just available and collecting dust. And the superintendent of Andover graciously, and their Board of Education, said we could have it. So we did take possession of it. It's here. I sort of made an executive decision to jump ahead of the board and maybe ask for forgiveness rather than permission, but this was a opportunity that saved us quite a bit of money and kept the heat going at Valley View. So, if you weren't to accept this, we could return it, but then we'd have to buy one. Thank you to Bob for getting this for us and for keeping the heat and the lights on and everything that these things serve, and would ask for your support and appreciation to Bob. And once accepted, I will certainly send a letter and reach out to the Andover Board of Education and superintendent and express our gratitude.
Yes, please. Is there a motion to accept this donation from the Andover Schools?
Moved.
Thank you, Meg. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Tim. Thanks, Tim. Is there any further discussion? No, just thank you to the Andover Schools for offering this, and to Perfect Temp for brokering the arrangement, and Bob for figuring it all out. This is really, this is the kind of thing that you read in the middle of all of what we're dealing with right now, and it really warms your heart. So,
Literally.
yes, yes. That's right. Any further discussion?
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, I just said go for it.
Yes. All in favor? Aye. Aye. All right, that was unanimous as well. Excellent. Item C.
And this, of course, is another nice one. We've been involved with Project Oceanology at Brownstone for, gosh, I can't remember, I think it's 6 or 7 years now. Wonderful experience. I'm not sure if your kids have gone and done this, but it's a trip out on Long Island Sound where they get to take a look at the ecosystem and learn about what makes Long Island Sound tick. So we do have the opportunity to participate in this again. It's a part of a interdistrict grant program. I would absolutely support this wholeheartedly. I know Mike does, and the teachers at Brownstone love it, but we would need your blessing and approval on this grant application.
Is there any concern that it's past January 19th?
Nah, well, I think we'll be okay.
Okay.
Yep. Just go quick, though.
Yeah. That's a good question.
If we met last week, it wouldn't have been an
Yeah,
issue.
right. That's
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Is there a motion to approve the Project O 2024-25 Interdistrict Grant Program application?
Moved.
Thank you, Meg. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Sarah, is there any further discussion? No, I'll just say thank you to the science teachers at BIS who coordinate all of this with their students who participate. It's really, truly incredible. My oldest is participating right now. Actually, she had a Project O field trip today, an in-school field trip dissecting squid. It's really cool. So amazing that our district is able to participate in this year after year. It's a wonderful opportunity for our students. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Excellent, and Tim too. That was unanimous, thank you. Item D is 2 Board of Ed policies. These are first readings.
Right, so both of these have been reviewed and vetted and approved by the policy committee, and they did come as part of recommendations from CABE that reflect, well, in one of these, new state statute. The first one is not, it was a recommendation from CABE to consider it. This isn't any reflection of changes to state law, but it makes sense, right? This is just how our agendas are put together. This is only for first read, so it's for your consideration. And the way the bylaw here would envision the process is largely Laurel and I get together and we consider the agenda. Any members of the board who would like something added to the agenda there's a time frame here for you to share that with me and Laurel. At that point, Laurel and I would discuss it, consider the length of the agenda, consider the content of the item. If Laurel and I decided that we didn't want to put it on the agenda, of course, could be amended with a 2/3 vote by the full board to add it on. So this creates avenues for all board members to contribute to agenda items and then, of course, have agenda items put on the agenda. If, I can't imagine the circumstance, but there may be one where Laurel and I, or the board chair and the superintendent, felt that the item shouldn't be on the agenda for the board to have it placed on the agenda.
And what's important is this doesn't really reflect a change in practice at all. The only change of note was that our old policy stipulated that board members should communicate agenda changes one week in advance, and the CABE policy recommended did I get it backwards? That our old policy recommended a 24-hour advance notice, and the CABE policy recommended 1 week.
It was one.
It's one or the other, and we determined that 1 week, 1 week notice put a lot of onus on board members to know what they wanted to talk about well in advance, and that felt like too much. 24 hours wasn't enough time for us to be able to post, to be able to make good considerations and make our postings in compliance with what's legally required of us. So we felt that the 5 days was a good compromise, considering our meetings are on Tuesdays, and so we've got that weekend gap there. So that was the compromise. Everything else, it was just we felt that the CABE policy language was cleaner than our current policy language. So it looks like a lot of changes, but the substance is the same as our current bylaw. Is that accurate?
Yep, that is accurate.
guess my only question is, why include something around posting in the boardroom of the district and each school and place readily available to parents, teachers, and the general public? It doesn't seem like that was the current practice, and I just wondered, is that CABE's recommendation?
That is the current practice.
Yeah, 'cause the clerk's
They-
office.
They are posted at all the schools on the boards for teachers and
Okay.
administrators.
Okay, great, so we're just kind of truing
Yeah.
policy up with
It's what we're
practice.
doing, and I think it's what represents best practice.
So that's a first read. That would be back at our next meeting for a second read and hopefully approval. I don't see any reason why we'd have to approve it now, but.
No, there's no
digest it
rush
and-
on this. But are there any other questions? Nope. Okay, so it'll be on the agenda again in February.
The second one here is a reflection of state statute. This is best practice. It's a good practice. I've been doing it right along, but I haven't been doing it as a function of board policy or state statute. But state statute changed, and boards are now obligated to adopt a policy that requires teachers leaving the district to have an exit interview. There eventually is going to be a process where I share that data out with the state. It's going to become part of our reporting, where Tricia and I do the interview and tell Tricia, well, this teacher is leaving for XYZ reason, and we're going to report that out to the state. So this was their model policy. The only thing we added here, which I support like 100%, I think that this is a terrific addition, is that not only would I be sharing that information with the state, but I'd be looping in the personnel committee. Right? And that's a really important group, and I think that it is appropriate for the personnel committee to be getting some unfiltered, through me or any superintendent, feedback about why folks would be choosing to leave the district, whether that's a function of salary, geography, career advancement, or climate and culture issues. I think that this is a feedback channel for the board, both that you can use that feedback when considering contracts and working conditions, but also my evaluation and otherwise the influence of your leadership team's leadership on climate culture in the district. It hits all the right notes. I support it entirely.
Yeah, questions about this? This is, as Charles mentioned, pretty much directly from the CABE policy with just a couple of minor changes.
And you see the exit interview questions on the back, which I thought were interesting, and we added the part about feedback to the personnel committee.
If there are no questions at this time, this will be on for a second read at our next meeting as well. Everyone okay with that? We move on? All right. Let's move to old business. Item A is the Board of Education policies that we have for a second reading. Policy 5112 is ages of attendance.
Yeah, so we tackled this last time. Again, this is the change in state statute that reflects that students need to be 5 years old by September 1. But otherwise, if they're turning 5 from September 1 to January 1, there is this request and this assessment that happens that's outlined here in the policy. And we spent a lot of time talking about this, so for sake of expediency, I'll assume, unless there are any questions, that the policy is there. You've had a chance to look at it, talked about it last time, and hopefully you're ready to approve it.
Are there any questions? No? Is there a motion to approve policy 5112, ages of attendance?
I'll make a motion.
I move that.
I think I heard Kim first, and I heard Tim. Are you willing to second it, Tim?
Yes.
Thank you.
Second.
That's great. Is there any further discussion? Nope. All right. All in favor? Aye. I think that was unanimous.
And then the final one here, this is also a second read. We talked about it last time. This is we got a reflection of the fact that we hadn't raised our fees for building rentals. Tricia did include, Dave, I think it was you who had asked for how much we're generating in revenue from some of the organizations who have rented. Tricia put that in the folder there, so you can take a look at that. Otherwise, to the extent that inflation is what it is, and labor costs are up, and electric bills are higher, and things cost more. I think that this is a reasonable increase. We haven't raised our prices I forget, I have to look what the last time it was revised, but I think it was 2017 or so. I think it's time to charge a little bit more, and squeeze every nickel we can to support a tough budget season.
Well, and to cover the costs of
To cover
keeping
the
our
costs.
facilities open for
100%.
outside groups to be
And I think
using our space.
the previous revision was not to increase the cost. There was some just language in rental, who was eligible to rent. So we haven't revised that for a long time.
So, Charles, I'd asked the question, and I'm wondering if there's any more information that, under the listing, like for the gymnasium, it's broken down group 4, group 5, what the costs are, but I don't see costs broken down by group for the other facility spaces. And I guess I'm wondering why some of them are by group and others aren't.
Don't have an answer for you.
Because group 1 and 2 are
I'd have to think that.
town park and rec, and we don't charge them so park and rec would use the gym for a basketball clinic.
But they would be charged for that,
they
not
would be
not
charged.
for using for the cafeteria if
Right.
they're having a
Right.
potluck dinner or
Right,
something.
right,
Gotcha.
right.
Okay, that makes sense. Did you follow that?
So that's why they're not charged the gymnasium, because it's a town entity.
It's less about I'm clear about the town entities that we don't charge them this rate. It's more just that, the gymnasium and the athletic fields are broken down different prices for groups 4 and groups 5.
I
which,
see that.
You know what I'm saying? But the other spaces, the auditorium, the cafeteria, the kitchen, those rates are fixed. Is it true that they're fixed for everybody?
That's what it's
regardless of group?
Correct.
Okay.
Whether if you're not in the group that's exempt from the fees because you're a town entity, it doesn't matter if you're group 4 or 5. That's what you're paying.
So
whereas
whether
the gym-
whether you're a nonprofit, whether you're an
Correct.
outside of town organization, you're going to pay the same $900 per performance in the auditorium.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, that makes sense. Yes.
Okay.
So again, it's a second read, if you're comfortable with it. This one is a little bit timely because we have groups that are interested in making a budget and considering those fees in the context of their programming, particularly for the summer. So
I'll make a motion to accept the facilities usage request and with the aligning forms 1 through 4.
the new rates.
Thanks, Meg. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Tim. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Special thanks to Tricia, who organized this and cleaned it up and made it look really great in terms of the format. She did a great job on the format.
Excellent. Thank you, Tricia. All right. So that takes care of the majority of our business on the agenda and brings us to our 2024-25 Representative Schools proposed budget discussion.
All right, so maybe I can level set for us. So what happened when we were together last was the board asked me to go and put together a snapshot of what a 3.5% budget would look like. I shared that with you on January 16th, right? So you got that. The very next day, on January 17th, I did have a conversation with our insurance consultant. Present for that was Stephanie, Tom, Brian, and I, and we were informed that the rates are 12.7%. I can give you a lot more details about that, but it is what it is, and at this point we have to recognize that was the lowest percent, and in the context of our usage, it's a deal right now. Like we want to lock that in because the other opportunities would be frighteningly different and higher. But this is going to be a concern for years to come. So I would just leave it that we need to take 12.7 at this point and hope that things stabilize a little bit. The insurance market I want to get off my soapbox, and I'm not going to ad lib about where we are as a country with this, but I don't know how it's sustainable. I just don't know. I just don't know how it's sustainable.
How many bids did we receive total? Can you remind me?
About five. So.
And this 12.7 was not only the best, but it was the best by
at least half.
Far.
By significant numbers. Terrifyingly large numbers.
And that included the state's municipal plan.
It was the highest.
Which came in at the highest.
Yeah. So.
So I think it's worth communicating that Charles and the town, because Ryan was part of this conversation, have done due diligence to try and do better for our insurance needs, and we are just in a really tough position this year.
Tough position. So where that puts us is, if you remember, I had lowered the insurance consultant's recommended placeholder from 12% to 10%, but we now have to go back to 12.7%. That difference being $87,000. Okay, so on January 16th letter you got from me outlined the 3.5%, but it didn't include that $81,000. So, in fairness, if you were going to consider the 3.5% and adopt that large list of additional cuts to get there, I'd have to go deeper, another $81,000 worth of cuts to get to that 3.5%. I have not done that yet. So if there's a desire on the board's part to see what an additional 81,000 cuts would look like, and I will do that, but I haven't done that yet. So what you have in that 3.5% letter is still short $81,000. Really, that's not a 3.5, that's like a 3.67. Right, so I just want to be honest about that, where we are. What I did send you on January 19th is my considerations. Again, I'm working hard to try to strike the balance between recognizing these budget drivers we have that are a reflection of the expiring COVID relief funding, general wage and dramatic insurance increase, and dramatic special education increases, balancing that with some offsetting reductions, and also trying to find that sweet spot with what we believe our community would support when it comes to a referendum. And that again, in my mind, this 4.87 is a larger than normal request, right? But we are not in normal times, right? Now, going higher than that, puts us in a situation where we could be potentially setting ourselves up for difficulties with a referendum. We would have to work very hard, and of course, we need to now bring in the first selectman and the board of selectmen and educate and make sure everybody understands how this is happening and what this means. But I certainly would have to say that this 4.89%, we're already past muscle and deep into bone in terms of the cutting. I can't recommend lower. I'm concerned and interested in your input about going higher, right? Like going to the 5.3 or 5.2, because if there's a decision, and this is why I think we need time to think about it. But if you're like, hey, put that library media specialist back in, or put those pairs back in, we're very quickly going to get above 5%, and that's 4.89 is already uncharted territory. I'm wondering what additional, once you get above 5%, how our community is going to react to that. So I understand and I recognize when I say there is very little for anybody to like in this budget, a lot for people to dislike in this budget, but I'm really working hard to try to find that sweet spot between what the community can support without impacting the mill rate in a way that would get us a failed referendum and a disgruntled Board of Selectmen, and what we absolutely need to mitigate some of these budget drivers that are all at once seem to be the perfect storm.
Yeah. Charles, will you, because I'm certain there are a lot of questions and things we need talked through, but would you first mind walking us through the additional reductions that you added to offset the $81,567 from our increased insurance costs, as well as the $30,000 for returning the .5.
Correct, good.
ELL teacher.
Right, happy to. So what we did at the last meeting was we added $30,000 back into the budget for the multilingual ML teacher. Our teacher of English is a second language, right? And the $81,000 difference between 10% and 12.7%, added up to $111,567. I took that number and tried to get back to my original number, 4.87. Tried to land back at that number, right? And I'll be completely honest, that number is arbitrary. But it's less than 5. I'll be honest, it just feels like a large number, but it's in that still reasonable place that I'm trying to navigate this, right? But there's no magic to 4.87. It's a number that I'm kind of looking at. I'm challenging my leadership team and Stephanie and Dawn to keep us under 5%. So that 111,000 I absorbed in the following, right? So the decodable texts there, that's part of the literacy. I would see that as a very nice Gildersleeve grant, and something we could pursue through that avenue. The replacement smartboards, Eric is on the line. He can certainly talk about that. We have some smartboards that need to be replaced. We're going to have to kick the can on that.
I thought that the smart boards had gotten moved to the capital request along with the Chromebooks.
Yeah, that's only that the Chromebooks and desktop computers, not the smart boards.
Not the smart boards. They had remained in our budget.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So additional facility repairs. Bob is here to talk to you about the implications of that. This is, we're going to have to lean heavily into Fund 11 and hope things don't break. Right. I mean. This is a real concern for Bob, and he can talk to you about this. Our facilities are on life support right now. I don't know any other way to describe it. We need to move on this facilities modernization plan, or hope it doesn't rain anymore at Valley View.
Right.
Bob, I mean, am I overstating it?
No.
Not a bit. So. Yeah, cutting back on this is going to be a stinger. But, again, these are things, not people. And that's where my head is at, right? Grounds maintenance, again, this is things like our grass seed and our fertilizer. And, well, yikes. But, again, things, not people. We are where we are. Okay, LCD projector, that also was one of the things that wasn't moved to capital. Here they are. They're expensive, they break. We need to replace them, but we're just not going to be able to do that. VM software, if you really want to know exactly what that is, I'm going to have Eric unmute and talk to you about it. But these are one of our tech applications. We're going to have to muddle by with that.
Is that something that is used by students, or is that something that's
Eric,
a system-wide thing? What are we talking about here, Eric?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay. So VM, where it relates to our servers, it's a software used by our servers. And actually, we just signed a new consultant contract that took a while to get through legal terms with a consultant who assured us that software was redundant. We couldn't strike it earlier. That decision actually just in a timely way came down last week that it's extraneous, so that's not going to affect us. That was, in a world of hard cuts, an easy one.
That's an easy one. That's nice to hear. Any other easy ones?
Sorry. The smart boards cut while I'm unmuted, I'll just say. We'll limp through, and we did put out that instructional technology survey where we can repurpose smart boards as needed across the district and trade them for projectors. So, Kim, I think you made that suggestion last meeting, and it's one we can live with.
What we're doing with these is buying time, though.
Yeah.
The clock will run out on us eventually. Obviously, summer curriculum writing, it's essential for that teacher to stay up to date with updating curriculum with new best practices and changes in state standards. We're going to trim back on that.
That one's painful.
Painful, for sure. Summer IT support is something, we hire students to come in and when the buildings aren't used, clean the machines, reprogram them, re-image them, and do all kinds of maintenance. We're gonna trim back on that. Tech department professional development, this is hard, especially what we were gonna use this for is to continue to train our Power School implementation specialist, as she continues to deepen her understanding of that very, very important system. And we're gonna have to find other ways to keep her skills fresh with that. Self-study, there's not gonna be any conferences or training associated with that.
Can Power School offer us any additional support with that? I mean, we pay them enough.
Yeah, we get some. This would be additional. $750 would be nice, but it's one of those things. We'll be okay.
Okay.
We'll be okay. Ed Advanced Software, Eric, you want to help us out with that one?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So you guys will be hearing in an upcoming meeting some changes to graduation requirements that are affecting what will be needed for capstone enrollments next year. We're anticipating less students engaging in capstone. I don't want to go too deep into that, but it's a cut we're able to make based on reduced enrollments in our capstone course. And that is software that's associated with enrollments. Each student gets a separate capstone software license, and we were able to trim that back.
Okay.
The two coaching stipends, I'm not prepared to identify those now, but these are, generally our assistant coaching positions. We will make those decisions once we see enrollment. Whether they will come from a team that can be managed by a coach. The potential implication of this would be cuts, right? So if we're not going to be able to run a JV program and only a varsity program, that would be lousy. I don't think that's going to happen, but we're going to watch that very, very closely. I don't know what else to do. Right.
So I know enrollment numbers in our sports programming can change from year to year, but if you were basing it off of enrollment in activities this year, do you anticipate that there would be sports where you could imagine reducing coaching without impacting student participation?
Yep, there are some teams that are less subscribed than others. We will be okay.
Okay.
We will be okay. And then I put the activity stipends on there, even though these are part of the teacher's contract and laid out. We change these every year. If we meet in the summer and identify which clubs and activities we're going to add, take out. We added this year the athletic coordinator, but hey, it's a good year for skiing, so we're going to have the ski club. But we change these every year. So I put the $2,000 in there to be completely honest with you, because it got me to the 111. Right, I was kind of working with it. We will figure that out this summer when I sit down with Sue and we write that MOU for what clubs and activities are going to be added or weeded from that calendar. And we do that every year. So, be mindful of that, and we'll figure out a way to absorb that cut.
And part of that, I imagine, will be looking at which activities are well subscribed to and which are less popular.
Some come and go, right? I mean, some years, some great new ideas come forward, and other ones, sunset. So we'll be okay there. And then the last one is just a bigger conversation. I mean, look, I'm definitely not prepared to sit here with a hard and fast proposal about pay for play. The number I used was just blunt. I took the number of high school athletes that we had, multiplied it by 100, the number of middle school athletes we had, multiplied it by 50. I am engaged in a deeper study with Frank Cardona and Kate. We're looking at Cromwell and East Hampton and other towns. I know there are a lot of questions about how we make sure that students with financial needs are not participating. We will absolutely bring forward a policy that has those guardrails. Look, my kids are paid for play in Wallingford. Both my kids are athletes, and we pay these things. We're even behind a little bit. Most towns have this.
Yeah.
We will come out with a fair and reasonable way. Once we design that fair and reasonable way, it would likely affect that number, but for now I'm comfortable with that number. I mean, I'm comfortable with it. it may change slightly downward as we come up with the scale, but, for the purposes of moving us forward, if this were embraced, it's something that policy committee and Kate and Frank and I are going to come with a more fleshed out policy proposal, right? If at some point, though, we have to be honest with ourselves. If the board takes the position that, okay, if you passed my budget recommendation here, made no changes with this on here, and then 2 months from now made a decision we're not doing pay for play,
You've got to come up with $43,000.
I've got to go find $42,000 worth of additional cuts, right? So we have to be mindful, and if there's an inclination on the board right now, absolutely no pay for play, right, needs to go back, right? So at this point, I'm working within that 4.8 number, but that's just a placeholder that does have a lot bigger and more important policy discussion and communication that we're going to have to do with our athletes and families.
So both Sarah and Tim, I believe, had asked questions by email about, would there be a fair and more equitable way if we were going to go down this route to apply this across the board to students, not only who participate in athletics, but participate in other extracurricular activities that the district pays for?
Yeah, so that 43,000 right there is only athletics, right? If we were to loop in other activities, the number would change, right? The answer is right now I've only considered athletics. As we do our deep dive and study surrounding districts and look at their policies and bring forward recommendations, I mean, the next stop on this is really going to be the policy committee, right?
Gotcha.
When the policy committee, we're going to look at what our neighbors are doing, consider that, and I don't know what rates are charged for the musical or the band or, ski club or whatever else. We have to figure that out, but it could.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that you have to consider is that we pay teachers stipends, which is part of their contract. I don't know what that total number is for what we paid out this year without looking up.
It's about $112,000.
Right. So, we're not going to charge kids $512,000, but pay for a student activity fee across the board might diffuse some of that $512,000 that we pay in teacher stipends, and it would offset it a little bit, and it would bring in a little bit of revenue to help.
Right.
So I think I'd like to see us consider across the board rather than just the athletics, but $43,000 is 0.5 personnel.
Go ahead, Tim.
I was just going to say at the same time, I don't see how adding a larger cohort of individuals paying a generic activity fee would reduce the 43,000. It would seem to me it would reduce the amount we need to charge for sports if we make a larger cohort of people eligible for a fee. So I think that's a misnomer. That if we're only looking for 43,000, then and we use a student activity fee versus just focusing only on the minority of students who are in sports, if we're going to do that, it would be a lot more fair.
I think you're agreeing with Meg.
Agreeing with me. You're agreeing.
Right, I am. I was
Yes.
just trying to emphasize the same thing. Right.
I think I agree with you I agree with all of you who are saying this, that if this is something we're going to explore, and quite frankly, I hate it, but if this is something we're going to explore, then I think it makes sense to apply something in a fair and equitable way to offset what it is costing the district to operate after-school programming, whether it's athletics or clubs or the musical or whatever. One thing I did say to Charles in an email that I think it's just worth saying that makes me the most nervous is that, the mechanism that I can think of that we've talked about here before is the easy way to identify who needs extra help so that they can participate is free and reduced lunch. But I think that we have a growing percentage of families in our community who don't necessarily qualify for free and reduced lunch, but who are getting by paycheck to paycheck, and for whom a fee would be a very real burden and might prohibit them from allowing their child to go out and try out for the play, or try out for the soccer team. And so I guess if we're exploring this, I want to know that we're really going to dig into what other mechanisms there are to be able to support families so that this doesn't impact who gets to participate. Because we know that ALICE group, that the asset limited income constrained group in our town has, I believe I read that it's gone up from 25% last year, the year before, up to 30% this most recent year. It's growing. People are struggling, families are struggling, and it would be absolutely heartbreaking if we were to implement something like this and find out next year or the year after that the percentage of students participating in activities has dropped down. So I guess I'm saying my only way that I can feel comfortable moving forward with this is knowing that we have a really sound system based on other districts' expertise, because it sounds like lots of people have implemented this to make sure that we really can get all of our kids participating who want to participate.
Right. I hear you loud and clear, and I agree. I hate it too, and I think Kate Lawson is looking forward to talking to you. She too does not support it for a lot of those same reasons. And if we weren't in this very ugly position, I don't think we'd be having this conversation. But my commitment is, when we do our homework, which is ongoing, that is one of the very first questions I will ask our colleagues in Cromwell and East Hampton and East Hampton who do have pay-for-play systems, is how are you working proactively with your communities to make sure that families aren't making decisions behind closed doors to not even try out because of the $100 fee or whatever it might be. And I've got to be completely honest, I don't have an answer. I don't know how that's done, but very much on my radar too.
Yeah, because we know it's hard to ask for help. People have a hard time asking for help.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
I just want to, Charles, comment on what you had said. Is it you continue to say only pay for play? Are you saying you're opposed to looking at activity fees and are only willing to look at pay for play? I know when we looked at this several years ago, we looked at both.
Yeah, I think I'm using pay for play and activity fee interchangeably.
Across the board.
I just think it helps for the community to understand what it is we're looking at, that we're not just focusing on sports. Especially if you just read recently, there was a huge article in the paper about how our students are suffering in terms of physical achievement and the physical testing. And you really don't want to do things that dissuade kids from getting involved with sports.
Yeah, and look, I want to be. It doesn't sound like there's a lot of support on the board for this right now. I mean, if
I think it's like it's hesitation, right? I think we are all in the same boat where we understand how drastic all of these cuts are, and I'm trying to meet you. But it's hesitation.
Yeah, and look, this is the board prerogative. If you're like Charles, off the table right now. It either means we add the 43,000 and go up from the 4.89, or I go find $43,000 somewhere else.
I think, I don't know, I'm concerned, I'm kind of going back to the first page too, and I'm looking at, I'm just looking at the second group of bulleted points, and I understand the hope to find our own speech language pathologist, but removing $130,000 from contracted services when we have not been successful in recruiting or retaining. I worry about that because of the requirement in the, I don't know. I'm just thinking that's another big number. Not that all of these numbers aren't big, but it's like, what happens if?
Yeah.
Same thing with
I got to be honest with you.
What happens this year?
The answer to that is what happens if is what's happening right now.
Right.
We are running a deficit right now, and it all related to special services and outplacements and contracted services. We are running a deficit right now because our speech and language pathologist resigned and left us in October, and we haven't been able to find anyone and are now paying the large amount per hour to Cheshire Fitness to provide those as a contracted service. We can't not provide that service. It's in IEPs and students need it, and we're legally obligated to provide it, and we're running a deficit, right? And that's we're in a terrible spot right now. I don't want to sugarcoat this in any way, because we are right now in a deficit. Stephanie and I were just talking about that this morning. Probably see a few more wrinkles on my forehead because of this. And this, even at 4.89%, there are real potentials for additional deficit next year. Now, what does that mean? That means that I am going to be on bended knee with my tin cup in front of the Board of Selectmen asking for a supplemental, potentially this year, potentially next year if we cut more or we don't find that speech and language pathologist. But we work our butts off to try to do this, and it's horrible, because if we don't convince the community that we need to get that supplemental, that's like mid-year layoffs and furloughs and bad times.
Yeah. I absolutely understand and share your concern about that particular item in general, and I also don't think it's okay for us to budget for that contracted service when we know that our ideal is to have somebody in-house to provide that service. So, I don't know if that's like optimism that we will actually find somebody, or if it's, but in my head, that 130,000 in the contracted services is the sort of what if that is equivalent to the extra $100,000 that Dawn wanted in her budget for potential outplacement, right? Yeah. And we're in such a tough situation as it is that I think we can't budget for the what ifs. We have to budget for the what are our immediate needs.
And let me just make one other thing, because I don't want to be. I'm an optimist. Believe me, I'm a glasses half full kind of guy, right? So there's some glasses half full things, right? We're going to also work hard to hire young teachers to replace teachers who are retiring, so that we can get the master step one and the placeholder savings. We're going to hope like heck that this conversation right here is happening at every Board of Education in the state. We just heard tonight about 7 point something in East Hampton, and East Hampton just went through the big vote no too low thing, right? Like, this hue and cry is going out, and you see the CABE legislative agenda, you see the CAPS agenda. The excess cost is really that's kneecapping us, right? Like, we got to be optimistic. We got to hope we can find people. We got to hope we can find young, new, excited teachers who we develop. And hope that they lower the threshold or increase the excess cost, or at this legislative session they're hearing all of we districts talk about the effect of the cliff and consider a supplemental to the ECS. Like, that's got to be our work to hope that some of this can be offset. So I'm optimistic that at 4.89%, with some worlds aligning, right, that we can thread the needle, right? But right now it's a narrow path to that needle.
So before we move on too far, were there other questions? I mean, and knowing we're not really going to dig too much deeper into this, but were there other questions, thoughts, concerns about the building revenue from a potential activity fee / pay to play, whatever we're going to call it, that piece of the puzzle? Are board members comfortable leaving that tentatively in here? Is it worth exploring further? Tim, sorry,
my question is, will we have any more information on Thursday than we have today, or is it still just going to be a $43,000 placeholder with no detail?
Tim, I'm going to be honest with you. But by the time we need to get the budget to the town, it is unlikely that I'm going to have really fully vetted, well-developed policy. Right. I think right now it's just a broad sword placeholder number. But look, I think at this point, again, my recommendation is I'm hearing and I'm reading the room that there's not support for this. Right. There's not. It does not look like there's broad support for this, no matter what the policy might be. Right. That the board is not in favor of a pay to play / activity fee. Okay. Is the inclination then move that 4.89 up to 4. Stephanie's on and she can do the math and figure out. Or Charles, by next Tuesday, I could bring you $43,000 worth of other cuts, right? But you're seeing the breath getting caught in my throat.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm going to find it without now going in deep into staffing. Like the next stop in the cuts is people again, right? And what you see, I think you see me trying to do here is not cut any more people. I've heard loud and clear. The 4 paraprofessionals has got us freaked out. The library media specialists got us freaked out. Those 2 TBD teachers has got us upset. The health teachers got us upset. Yes, I hear that, but there's only so many pencils and things that we can cut before we're at people.
I'm confused a little bit because are we working towards the 3.5 or are we staying at the 4.8? Because the 4.8 has nothing to do with the 43, right?
No, it does. So Dave, the 4.85% that Charles initially sent to us would have gone up to, increase would have been a what, 5.33 increase based on what we heard back from the insurance company.
Oh, yeah.
And adding back that 0.5 ML teacher.
Correct.
So that $111,567 from those 2 items, Charles is offsetting with this list of items.
The third, like
cuts plus anticipated revenue from an activity fee / pay to play of approximately $43,000. Does that make sense? So it is very much a part of the 4.85.
It's an additional
Yeah,
revenue.
I saw the 43,000 as part of the 3.5.
It's part of both.
I didn't see it on the other one.
Yeah.
Maybe I got an old copy.
Yeah, it's on there, 3.52.
It's on the January 19th memo.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I got January 16th. Must be.
I think it's in your packet. It should
I
be
have
in
3
your-
different ones in my packet.
Yeah, it's on both. It's on both.
So here's another tough question, because we cannot afford to keep cutting teaching positions, first of all. I don't like pay for play, but it's $43,000, and I think we have to be realistic. But I also am concerned that I have not, and this bite my tongue, secretaries have not taken a hit on any of the time that they are required to be in the office. I don't know if we can look at half-time secretaries for, 2 people in the office. They have, God bless the secretaries, and I was the steward for the union for many, 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 many years and fought for all the things that we got. But in the scheme of things, we can look at secretaries, and do we need full-time secretaries? Can we share people between schools? We've done that in the past. Administrators, I don't see the administrators, and again, hardworking, I love every single one of them. I couldn't pick one to say goodbye to, but I think we have to go beyond, because what I'm seeing right now is, I'm worried about student achievement. I'm worried about where we've been and what we've gotten to. This was the stable time after COVID. And again, last week I said it, the state has upended the stability and caused all kinds of angst. And, that still needs to be addressed. But right now, I can't see us cutting any more staff. And the other thing I'm going to throw out there, Tim said it last week, close the school. Did you not, Tim? Did you say close the school?
Well, I suggested that might be something on the table.
If we closed a school, would we keep the services that we had and eliminate that one entire school expense? Would the staffing and the services stay the same for the 1,200 kids that we have in this district? I think we have to look at that question.
And I did ask that in an email to Charles, and I guess my question was about Gildersleeve, which I know with the 3 grades is difficult, is an option. I share Laurel's concerns about the pay to play or the activity fee. It feels yucky to me. I do understand the need for finding funds. I would like, if we are having Kate and Frank look at that they look across the board. How many students are in the play? How many students are doing other activities to try to get a better understanding of how many students we're talking about, and also making sure we have clear cut. We're knocking on doors of houses. Hey, you were in the play last year. You're not there this year. Why not? Because I am, just like Laurel said,
Yeah, we're all
super concerned about those kiddos on the fringe that they're not going to try out because they know their parents can't afford it, so they just won't bother. So I am concerned, but I do understand trying to find revenue. But I do feel like we need to try to look more.
Well, let me offer. I've thought about all of those. So you know, those aren't things that haven't run through the gray matter, and I would be happy to give you some thoughts about what would happen if we did each of those. Because I want you to know. I mean, I want you to hear. So we are overstaffed in administrators, secretaries, custodians. We're overstaffed in lots of things because we're running 3 elementary schools of less than 225 students. Right? Yep. This consolidation to one school, I gave you the projection, would save over $850,000 a year in salaries, another $115,000 in benefits, and significantly more in overhead, electricity, gas, upkeep, maintenance. I mean, there's tremendous. We are way overstaffed in this district, but we're spread so thin. The number of people we have, you can't divide people in half, right? This is the problem, right? What you're talking about with secretaries is dividing someone in half. I mean, a person can't really be in two places at once. Could we reduce a secretary and have a secretary float between Valley View, Gildersleeve, and Brownstone? We could, right? The logistical challenge of that it would be a lot, right? That you know, you need one secretary in an office, 2 secretaries in an office. You need people there. We'd have to figure out a schedule. It would be very complicated. You know, otherwise it would potentially mean reducing a secretary. I think at the secondary complex to part-time. Also, very complicated. Not undoable. If that's the wish of the board, I'm telling you, we could do it. The potential for grievances, the potential for climate and culture issues, the tumult it would cause organizationally could be impactful, but we would manage it.
We're going to have climate and culture issues with teachers. The morality is going to go.
We already do.
We do. Agreed.
We do.
Agreed.
So, I mean,
Yep.
let's throw everybody into the pot at this point.
You know, and the same with administrators, right? One principal can't run 2 buildings, right? You need administrators in buildings managing the logistics in there for all kinds of safety reasons.
Understood.
Where does that bring us for administrators? Well, that brings us to our assistant principal with responsibility for athletics, or that brings us to our director of curriculum instruction and technology. Our Director of Curriculum Instruction and Technology in particular, has a lot of responsibilities for managing a lot of technology and things like, we're transitioning to the science of reading and many other curriculum and instruction endeavors. And our Director of, our Assistant Principal with responsibilities for athletics oversees our entire athletic program. Reducing either one of those positions, I'll be honest, if it were the Director of Curriculum Instruction and Technology, that's what I would take on. It would go back to me. Don't forget I was that. Now, I only have so much bandwidth, especially if I'm going to be leading a school consolidation. A lot would fall off the plate, right? And reducing our assistant principal with responsibility for athletics would push athletics back into the responsibility of the building principals, particularly at the high school. Could potentially invite a grievance and the claim for changing working conditions. We would back it up as best we could. Would be very complicated, and I think our athletic program would suffer for that. I just got to be honest. That's why I didn't recommend that. I thought about that. I see that. Again, if that's the direction the board wants us to go, let me know, and we'll work on that. Not something I'm recommending. That would need to be a board directing me to make those reductions and come back with a plan for that. I'm just being honest and realistic here. As far as last one, and then I'll ask questions, closing a building. You can't close Gildersleeve. We need the space.
Yep.
If you closed Brownstone, you'd move the 6th grade to the middle school, the 5th grade back to Gildersleeve, but then you'd have to bring back the portables to move the 2nd grade back to Valley View. Remember, if
you're saying there's not enough space
at
Gildersleeve to house the current 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and at 5th grade as well.
Correct, because don't forget, the 5th grade has that 113 kids. We need 6 classrooms at Gildersleeve. It's not there, which would mean the 2nd grade would have to go back to Valley View. there's not room for that. We'd have to bring back the portables, which would be crazy. Like,
And
you're just-
expensive. And
yeah,
not-
and expensive.
I
Like, how do we
thought
do
we
that?
had one with-
Yeah, the only building you could mothball would be Valley View, right? You would do that by moving the 6th grade to the middle school, turning Brownstone into grades 3, 4, 5, and turning Gildersleeve into grades pre-K 2. So if you mothball Valley View, took it offline, you would make Gildersleeve pre-K, K1, 2, Brownstone 3, 4, 5, and move the 6th grade to the middle school. Yes, there would be savings there. You could reduce a principal, 2 secretaries, 2 custodians, nurse, additional support. And, you know, again, we'd have to work with Bob. We'd have to maintain the building as it was mothballed, but it would cost significantly less to maintain in terms of cleaning. But we'd have to keep the heat on so the pipes don't burst, that kind of thing. That type of disruption done now and giving us, 8 months to do all that would be very upsetting to a lot of people, faculty, staff, students, and parents. Boy, that would be hard for people to hear. Outside of a true budget disaster, I don't know that the community would embrace that with open arms. I think, yes, closing schools and getting us to consolidated schools is a great idea, but it needs lots of communication, time, planning, and a process to get everybody on board and comfortable with the who, what, when, where, and how. Doing this in a budgetary way just to make those cuts, I don't know that the folks in Portland would feel really good about that.
But the reality is when we go to one school, you're going to have to do exactly that plan.
Correct.
So we could maybe not rush it for next year, but start thinking about it for the year after, assuming everything gets approved.
100%, which is why as soon as we're done with this budget deliberation, we're quickly going to pivot to the facility study report, Great Blue, getting the Board of Selectmen on board, Fire Architects bringing us numbers, and doing this in a thoughtful, meaningful, deliberative way, not a knee-jerk cut the budget way.
Can our student rep ask a question?
Of course.
Hi, so you were talking about combining the buildings. With the current state of the buildings right now and some of the problems that it leads, and some of like the cost repairs and everything, would that ultimately benefit the budget if we close a building but would still have to work around all the other repairs and everything that have to constantly be made?
So if we reduce buildings, there would be significant savings, right? And the 3 elementary schools we know, because we had 2 architecture firms look at them, need many, many millions of dollars worth of work. Roofs, boilers, windows, parking lots, HVAC systems. Consolidating schools would accomplish the goal of creating nice schools that aren't falling apart when it rains and not having a waterfall down the hallway when the wind blows in the right direction. I'm not exaggerating. Bob's right there. You can tell you we're in dire straits. It would get us to a point where we would have fewer nice schools, and the savings from the staffing reductions and the upkeep would also be significant.
Yeah.
It's a win-win.
But Caitlin, to your question about if we were to because I think you were asking about if we were to consolidate next year as part of our budget solution, right? Yeah. So the answer is we would be dealing with the same building facility challenges that we deal with every day all year long. Already our buildings are have such challenging circumstances, are in so badly in need of repair, that's a problem that our staff have to manage all year long, whether we're running all 3 elementary schools or whether we were to consolidate next year to 2 as part of this budget solution. But it's a good question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think one of the things, I'm sorry, you done?
Go ahead, Tim. Yep.
Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
So one of the things that just popped in my head as this conversation continued, if we were to pass almost 5% budget this year, and then next year we close the school in order to implement savings, we're going to run into the minimum budget requirement problem that we had, where now we're forced to spend more because we've already spent so much more. So how much could we really cut from the future? But now we're in a position where we could actually really benefit from savings that could be generated.
Tim, in terms of the MBR, I'm not that anxious about that. Really, we just need to be asking permission and not forgiveness. In that case, we would need to be very clear with the State Department of Education, and they would see, because they'd see our applications coming through the Department of Administrative Services. They would know what we're up to. The last time Portland got in trouble with the MBR, that was a situation where you were asking for forgiveness, right? We would just need to be very proactive and demonstrate how, by reducing schools and consolidating, the savings are being generated, which are actually enhancing the student's educational experience, not negatively impacting it, which is really the MBR is designed as a firewall against that. But I would absolutely be on the phone with the Commissioner of Education, making sure she understood what we were up to throughout the process.
Thank you.
No, you
I
go.
was
You
gonna
go.
go in a different direction.
That's fine if folks are ready to move on from that. I mean, that's a lot of things to be considering. Possible secretary position, possible administrative position, possible closing of Valley View and consolidating to 2 schools. I think it's really important that we kind of leave no stone unturned and talk these all out as possibilities. Do folks have strong feelings about whether there are any of those options that we would like to see explored further before we move on to something different?
I was going to bring up my big one, and this is going to be my soapbox from now to eternity,
Yeah.
is that $896,000 transportation budget that we got to be able to think outside the box and figure out something different. If you could save $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, that would be, all of your positions would be put back.
So my commitment on that, Dave, is yes, I am prepared to get what you're describing is we got to get back in the transportation business.
Correct.
We made a decision, for better or worse, to get out of the transportation business and contract it with M&J, but that was largely a function of personnel and just a bizarre position in a contract. You're right. I think that what we've seen with the minivan, we can tiptoe back now. And I've already made some efforts in that direction. I think the MOUs we recently negotiated that pay that differential when secretaries and paraprofessionals are driving the van, and several of our current employees who are working through the process of getting that endorsement. I think there are lots of opportunities that's going to open. What I would hope is that, wouldn't it be nice if we do what you're describing, save that money, and then go back to the good old days of having an end-of-year surplus? That would be wonderful.
So can I ask, because the last time we spoke about transportation, you and Stephanie were describing how you'd met with M&J and you were discussing what potential savings might be if we were to switch from the piecemeal transportation to a single driver, and that I think Stephanie said they were talking about the possibility for finding $50,000 there. Is that panning out? Is that something we could build into this budget? Could we restore a position with that $50,000?
We haven't heard from Stephanie today. I know that she's been having those discussions, get updated on us. And Stephanie, as you update us on that, feel free to chime in on anything you've heard so far and correct me where I'm wrong if I am.
No, everything you've said has been accurate. I have been John Hipsher and I have been playing email tag, and the last email that I have finally copied Charles on to see if I can get any more info from him, he stated that he had to still meet, I guess Nancy was out or whatever, and so he could not give me an answer at the time as of today. So I can't say as of right now, yes, we can. I'll put a bug in his ear again to please try and get back to me, see how we can make that work. If we can make that work, if they've got drivers, and let him know that it is at the board level now, and then we need to have these discussions.
So as far as you're aware, that $50,000 in potential savings from transitioning to a single driver is still a possibility.
I believe yes. It's from speaking to Dawn and Olivia, strategically, yes. It's just if they can provide a person all day. that's really what it comes down to.
And this could start as soon as this year, next month?
They could provide.
That I
a person.
don't-
I mean, we
That I don't know. I've been trying to work with them about consolidating some other things as well, trying to do some changes with what we have. Again, I don't know their staffing and what they have available.
But their staffing needs, so I guess my question is, while that might be a hard thing to say midway through the year, we want this and we want it tomorrow. If we say for next year, this is what we want, find somebody who can be that driver, is that realistic?
I don't see why it can't be, but if I could try and get John on the phone tomorrow, if we're still going to revisit this on Thursday, and then maybe have a better answer then. And we also are meeting with Dawn tomorrow as well, so, I can kind of talk to her, about the needs and some other things that have just come up recently in that area.
Yeah, I would love to, if you're able to get him on the phone before we meet on Thursday again, I would love an answer on that if possible, because in my mind, that's, that gets us more than halfway towards restoring one of these positions that I'm really very deeply concerned about.
Yep.
Can I ask Stephanie a couple of questions?
Please.
Summer IT support, it looks like we were budgeting $11,700. We've reduced it by 3. Is that true? And the other one is curriculum writing. We budgeted 10, we reduced it by 2,000.
Yep.
Can we reduce either one of those? Can we do curriculum writing during the PD 2-hour delayed openings?
So those would be questions for Eric.
Yep.
I wouldn't know, I don't know what that entails.
And I know the summer IT support is significant. That's only reduced. It looks like $7,000 remains in that budget line.
Again, Eric could probably speak to that. I know since we do have the 2 people that were hired, maybe they don't need, but it's nice to have the students come in because it gives them an opportunity to also get to see what, if maybe they want to go into that field.
I know.
So I do know they do like to keep some kind of hours in there for students. But again, that's more for Eric to speak on.
So I can speak to the summer curriculum writing first. We typically reserve that, Meg, to your point, we do utilize district professional development time in a release day schedule to write curriculum, but summer curriculum writing hours are specifically reserved for teachers who are teaching new courses they've never taught before, are being asked to revise courses to come in some alignment with changes in standards or state mandates.
Right.
And they're special projects. Just to give you an idea, we've already reduced that to 200 hours. Last year we funded 315 and we had over 500 hours requested. That's in addition to what's a significant amount of time dedicated to curriculum writing already in the district PD calendar. On the summer intern, we've actually completely eliminated summer interns. Steph, I believe the line that's being referenced there is
Was it purchase services?
Their purchase services, which is down 9,000 and cannot be further reduced.
Okay. That was unclear to me. Thank you.
Sarah, you'd wanted to go in a different direction.
Well, actually, Dave and you kind of led right into it. I was just looking at the 3.5% increase lines that Charles had sent, and reducing special education transportation was put in for $44,455, which is similar to the $43,000 from the pay to participate. So I'm wondering, okay, well, given the conversations that have already been taking place around transportation, is that a possibility if, as a board, we're saying, hey, we don't really want to explore pay to participate, but here's this other area that you found, we've already been having conversations around the possibility of.
So that's a good question. And that what was it, 44,000? What was the amount?
Yeah, I've got it.
4,455.
Where did that figure come from?
I put that, she's right, I put that on the 3.5
Right.
reduction, and it's reduce special education transportation, which is what we're talking about, by 44,455. 455, which actually, the world's aligned on that, is exactly the pay for, well, 1,500 more, but
Yeah, but I guess I'm curious about where you got that number.
that came out of this
Was that planning to
conversation.
come from that potential 50,000 in savings from M&J, or was that some other
It was
transportation magic?
It was going to be a little bit of magic, but it was going to be a combination of hoping that we can make that work and we can find that person, or what I've been talking about with getting back into the transportation business by having. I have one gentleman in mind who's really close, driving that van all day, not for both transition program and outplacements. So it was a combination of the two. But again, like I said, this is like the speech and language. It's going to require, and we'll do it. We're going to do it no matter what, right? I mean, to even try to generate a surplus, right? I mean, we're going to do this. We're going to tiptoe back into the transportation business and continue to work with M&J to economize where we can. But so at this point, look, I think, Sarah's proposal is, and it's not one I'm opposed to, take pay for play / activity fee off the table and put in this Charles Go find 42,000 at minimum, but in the transportation world. And I know Dawn's hearing this, and Stephanie's hearing this, and we'll make the calls to M&J and continue to encourage our paras and secretaries to get that W endorsement or whatever it is on the license and build routes around that.
I mean, we're trying to ask current staff. I mean, when you're spending $900,000, you can afford to hire someone just to run a bus.
Right.
You can afford to buy 2 more buses. Create your own little transportation company at that money. Don't try to uptick a para to try to drive a bus. I mean, go hire a professional. Spend whatever it takes.
I don't see.
My opinion.
Yep.
I mean, you're up
I mean,
at
if
that.
we've
You're up
got
at
a
almost $1
full-time
million.
secretary and they're needed in the office, and we need 2 of them, putting them one on a bus, driving around, picking and dropping up kids is.
Well, I say the only say paraprofessional, not because I'm thinking it will be a paraprofessional, because that's the bargaining unit and the rate we've identified. Remember, we did the MOU with that differential, so we have that agreement already. Again, this needs to go back through personnel, and we need to look at comps and figure out if we hired our own bus driver, what that compensation rate and benefit package would look like.
You're imagining it might fall under the para
Correct.
bargaining unit.
Correct. Yeah, I'm sort of considering that as a placeholder.
You're not necessarily suggesting we
No.
take our current paras and
No.
get.
Well, you create a position, and if the para wants to bid for it or
Right.
interview
Right.
for it, then
Right.
great.
But again, that's work that we're going to do regardless of what decisions are made about the budget.
Right.
Yes.
Right. It's a little bit hard to build a budget on that.
Yes.
On the sort of what ifs of how that may or may not pan out.
Right, and I know we're not voting tonight, but I'm looking for some consensus. Is there some consensus in preparation for next Thursday that pay for play activity fee is off the table, and that I bring to you some ideas that might be what Sarah identified with this transportation piece in place of that? But
Honestly, I think we should be exploring both.
Okay.
I mean, do I like the pay for participation? Absolutely not. Would I like to see us implement that and find transportation savings and be able to restore a certified teacher or a paraprofessional or 2? That would be my preference. I am deeply concerned about the number of positions we have eliminated and the impact on student learning, and I think that if we're not exploring both of those opportunities, then when we're missing that opportunity. I don't think we can afford that.
Yeah, and maybe I don't disagree. And can I just, again, because I think some people are maybe tuning in for the first time, I just want to kind of level set on the positions here, right? That kindergarten position, we have budgeted 5 kindergarten positions, right? We currently have 6 kindergarten teachers. We're budgeting for 5, and we're doing that because we anticipate that the policy you adopted tonight, which changes the kindergarten start age, is going to mean a low kindergarten class. I think we're only going to have 65 kindergarten students next year, and we're only going to need 5 sections. It's possible we might only need 4 kindergarten sections. We don't know, students haven't registered yet, right? So that we have 5 kindergarten sections. I want everybody hearing me to know we are not raising kindergarten class sizes. This was going to happen no matter what. If we kept 6 kindergarten sections, we would have class sizes of like 9, right? I mean, we're not raising class size, right? I mean,
Maybe.
potentially, right?
Potentially. Let's also say that this is a really big what if.
A
We
big
don't
what if,
know what our
always.
kindergarten registration will look like. We never do, really.
Never do,
The
right.
last 2 years, we budgeted for 5 sections, and we needed a 6th.
Exactly.
So we have to be real about that, too. We're budgeting for 5. We might need a 6th. We might only need 4.
Exactly.
But I think budgeting for 5 makes sense.
Correct. And just know, Portland, we are not raising kindergarten class sizes. That number 90 is what we look at as when we go above 90, we need that 6th section. When we're below 90, we're good with 5. When we get below 70, we only need 4, right? But a big change has happened this year with the kindergarten start age, so I'm comfortable with that.
And we'll see.
And we'll see. The first grade class sizes, and I remind you, there are 89 kindergarten students. Right now, we really only need 5 kindergarten sections. We have 6. We're only going to have 5 sections of first grade next year, which again is going to keep class size comparable. We are not raising class sizes with those reductions. The third grade section, same thing. It's a function of enrollment, right? I showed you the numbers. By reducing that third grade section, class size stays the same. We don't need another teacher there because of the small class in second grade now compared to the larger class in third grade.
It goes up minimally.
Minimally, like 1 or 2
Yes.
students.
I mean,
That's the average there.
but for all of them.
For
I
all
mean, we're
of them,
saying it
right.
doesn't really affect class size, but it does inch it up minimally.
Correct. Yes. That the health position again. We're going to have 3 fewer sections in pre-K to 4, based on our projections. Now, it could change. More families can move into Portland, and those numbers could go up. But we can absorb that because we are going to have fewer sections based on current enrollment, right? The library media specialist, definitely. Like, that's one. I get it. That's one that if you were saying to me, hey, just like we were with the multilingual teacher, that's one I hear the concern loud and clear. And those 2 FTE TBD, I'm not prepared right now to identify those because we're looking at some programmatic potential adjustments. We need to see what the enrollment, particularly at kindergarten, comes in at, and we need to build our schedules, right? If we only need 4 sections of kindergarten because the change in the law means we only have 60 kindergarten students, there's one right there that doesn't affect class size. That could be like a low-hanging fruit one. The other one, I will be sharing with you my recommendation for what that is, but I want to wait till the spring to see how things shake out.
So Charles and I spoke about that because I have been really concerned about that 2 FTE TBA, and wasn't really clear on what TBA meant. Like, was it really a wait and see, or do you have a list already? And Charles explained to me that there is a list. There is a list of positions that he and his administrative team have put together that would be under consideration, and none of them would be easy decisions, but each one would be made based on what would do the least damage to student learning. Am I summarizing that accurately? So it's not like it's some phantom position. Like, there are positions that have been identified.
Correct.
And
when
like I
we
said,
vote on the budget, if we approve the budget with those TBDs, we're approving those not knowing what they are, and then we just have to swallow that when it happens?
No, I'll bring that to you. We'll go through personnel, and I'll bring it back to the board, and you'll understand what the position is and the implication of the reduction for sure, and that will happen later in the spring.
or you know, if Charles, at that point, because these are sort of placeholders, at that point, if Charles brings us his recommendation to reduce a position, and the board says, absolutely not, you can't do that, then Charles would have to go back to the drawing board and find that, you know, whatever dollar value is on that, would have to find that somewhere else.
I'd like to see it sooner rather than later, and I don't know whether executive session is appropriate, but, you know, that to me is not fully being aware of the cuts and the impact on student learning.
Yeah, but then
I'm very uncomfortable with that.
But again, I also want to be a little bit glass half full. And hey, by that time we'll have hired new teachers. I'll give you one example. You see that we've already saved $15,000 in the budget by replacing a veteran family consumer science teacher with a first-year family consumer science teacher. Other people have retired and are leaving too. If I'm able to come to you in the spring and say, we don't need that TBA position because we've generated savings from transportation placeholder savings or other economizing.
Where is that 15,000 in savings represented here? Because maybe I've missed that.
Yeah, no, I gave it to you. I think
Is that in the
I put it in the
3.5?
3.5, yeah.
But does that belong in here?
It does.
We just saved $15,000.
There we go. We just found $15,000. Yes. Yeah, you see that? It's you're right.
All right.
I missed that bullet.
There's our magic.
It's right under that. You know, it was right under that cushion that we just lifted up. But yes.
So.
And that's money we've already saved. That's helping with this year's deficit. So.
Yes. Yes. So that's 15,000 in savings from hiring the new consumer and family tech position.
Right.
And there's the potential for other savings in hiring.
Correct.
But we haven't accounted for those potential savings
because we haven't hired.
Because we haven't hired.
Right. And you know, look, I'll give you another example. Like Dawn is retiring.
Right.
We're going to fill her position. You know, this is just by way of example. The administrator's contract gives us, and this would be a function of a discussion at the personnel committee, the flexibility to hire that person at anywhere from 5% below up to 10% above the amount in the contract. That's largely going to be a function of that person's experience, right? That's another example of potential placeholder savings that might become available to us based on who we identify as the candidate for that position. So that's why keeping them in there as TBD. The personnel committee and the full board is going to know. And hey, I'm being glasses half full, but look, we could have 100 kindergarten students register next year and need 6 sections.
Right.
Right. So, like, I feel like sometimes I'm being a little wishy-washy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not.
You're not being wishy-washy.
It's
You're trying to communicate to us the uncertainty that exists in so many of these items.
So many of these
items. It
items.
puts you in a really tough position,
Yeah,
Charles.
and you know, sometimes, you know, a student can come back from outplacement, or a family can move out that's outplaced. Like, sometimes the worlds align perfectly, and sometimes the perfect storm comes in, right? Like this year, the storm's hitting us, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're crashing against the rocks here. The waves are bashing us, right? I could get into my office tomorrow, and Dawn could come over and see me, and Stephanie could come over and go, hey, the state just released the excess quants. It's 82%, right? It's just so complicated. It's so complicated. But again, at 4.85%, that's my comfort zone.
Yeah.
I don't like it there. I don't even want to call my comfort zone. It's my, but I can land the plane. I can do this. We got a lot of hard work to do, but we can live there.
So I have a few other questions,
Go for it.
clarifying. Because this is not pretty any way we look at it, and we all have to sleep at night, I feel like I need to be able to speak to community members when they say, well, why? Why did this happen? Did you look at everything? I want to be able to give solid answers to things. I think one of I still need to hear, and I know you answered in an email to me, but we can talk through looking at the COVID money and how we created positions and how that aligns with para positions are being cut, which ones, and I know it's not a person for person, I'm just saying the positions. We know we funded these positions knowing this money was running out. Are we now being mindful in how we're cutting, that the positions that were created are being considered for cuts because we knew that money was temporary? Did we do it in a mindful way? Are we being mindful about the cuts? So can we talk through the positions that were created? I know in your email you put the 21, 22, 22, 23, and 23, 24 hires, and how cuts are being made.
For sure, and I also want to layer in the school improvement grant fund. So Stephanie, listen up and unmute yourself if I say this incorrectly. We were smart. I will say, we were smart with our COVID money. We spread it out over 3 years. We used some of it to pay for the architect, and our cliff was far less of a cliff than many districts. Our cliff this year was $247,000. That cliff comprised of 5 paraprofessionals, Stephanie, correct me if I'm wrong, part of one teacher position, which is an interventionist at Gildersleeve, which we put there because we took that obnoxious cut in August, if you remember, to the SIG grant from $350 down to $150, and one other, Stephanie, right?
One other FTE just to make class sizes smaller.
Where was that? Do we know?
Gildersleeve, correct?
Third grade.
Third grade. So.
But it's a person that's been here and partially has typically been funded in open choice. So we were just able to shift that person over there to put a different person in open choice, but now we're just going to shift them back. So there's no impact. And then we just happen to not be filling 4 paras that resigned and or are retiring, so that kind of helped the cliff for the paras.
And then the other cliff was the $350,000 that we had expected from SIG grant funding. We had funded out of that 2 special, Alec Gildersleeve, 2 special education teachers, 1 reading interventionist, and another interventionist. When we took that cut this summer, we laid off the reading teacher. Remember, I had to have that very difficult conversation in August. We laid that person off, but that person knew, because it was in their letter of hire, that this is a grant-funded position, and she found another position and is doing well, and I'm happy about that, but that was a cut. We were able to subsidize the other interventionist with SIG grant money. Next year, we're still counting, ESSER money, excuse me, correct. We're counting on next year $150,000 of that for the final year of the grant, which we're going to be using to fund those 2 special education teaching positions. That 1 interventionist position that is now being funded out of a combination of SIG grant and COVID relief funding could be one of the TBD. Could be. But again, we've got to go through the spring and study what's the kindergarten enrollment going to look like? Where did we hire new people? Did any other worlds align for us? Was Charles able to work on with the transportation and the other things? But that could be one of those TBD positions. We have to study that. So the cliff, just to summarize, the cliff is, and Stephanie, correct me if I'm wrong, 5 paras, 1 teacher, 1 interventionist, 2 special ed teachers, and we've already laid off the 1 reading teacher.
And a clinician at PMS who's hired.
The clinician at PMS is funded out of the mental health grant, and that's a cliff, but that's not going away yet. Stephanie, how did I do?
Good.
Thank you for that. So, just to sum that up, from the positions that were funded in this year's budget by ESSER and SIG funds, we are only looking to retain in this budget the 2 special education teachers at Gildersleeve and 1 interventionist that was currently partially funded by SIG and partially funded by ESSER.
And 1 para.
And 1 para.
Because we have 5 paras in the cliff.
Right. Do you feel like that answered your question? Did you have a follow-up to that, or are you satisfied?
Yeah, it's an answer, so thank you. Yeah, I understand. My next questions, and this is one that I'm really struggling with, and I know for me, not for me, from what I'm hearing from the community, the library media specialist is a huge concern. And the health position is also another concern. And I'm just wondering, and I know I asked before and you did explain it, but it's listed as 1 FTE, health PE, from grades K to 12. And earlier tonight you referenced sharing across pre-K to 4 because of the reduced sections. Can you please explain, is it 1 full-time health teacher that's being eliminated?
No, so it's a 0.5 PE teacher right now it's at Gilder, at Valley View. So we're going to be sharing 2.5 PE teachers between Valley View, Gildersleeve, and Brownstone.
They're currently 0.5s? No.
Currently we have 3 FTE.
Right.
We have 1 PE teacher, 1 at Valley View, 1 at Gildersleeve, 1 at Brownstone.
Yeah.
The reduction from the 1 fewer kindergarten, 1 fewer first grade, 1 fewer third grade is going to reduce 0.5 FTE out of those 3 positions. So it's going to be 2.5 FTE shared between those 3 schools.
2.5.
2.5,
Okay.
yep. And
Not 2.5 positions.
2.5.
I just wanted, because I heard that
Yep.
funny, so I just wanted to clarify. 2.5 FTE.
Right.
Yeah.
2.5 FTEs.
And we have a history of sharing PE teachers between the schools. They try, right? The other 0.5 is you read into the record a letter from the student. It is the health teaching position here at the high school, right? So what that is going to mean is we're going to need to share. There is another health certified PE teacher at the middle school. That person may need to come over from the middle school and teach a section or 2 of health here at the high school. But so the cut is 0.5 health at the high school and 0.5 health at Valley View. But it really involves all the schools because it's going to mean sharing schools, which, by the way, is the benefit and why we aligned the high school and middle school schedule. And we will then, of course, work within the specials rotation at Valley View, Gildersleeve, and Brownstone to share teachers there.
So I guess my concern, maybe people are appreciative that they're not losing their job fully, but my concern is now that we've got 2 full-time staff people that are, I'm sure, valued members of the community, that you're now telling them they're going to be half-time. If somebody told me that about my job, my resume would be out the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So now my concern is the potential to lose 2 great staff people because we're going to cut 0.5 versus a rationale for why not that same model with like the library media specialist, which I don't think is a good model, but why did we choose that model in that situation? And I think it's not a good choice, but I don't think cutting a full-time either is a great choice. I'm not trying to advocate for that, but I am very concerned that those 2 people won't stay if they're 0.5.
They may not. But I agree with you. They may not now.
So what's the rationale for not just cutting 1 full-time person and knowing we'll keep
Because
consistent staff?
we couldn't cut 1 full-time teacher because of the schedules between the secondary school and the elementary schools don't align. So you really can't share. You can share staff between the middle school and high school. You can share staff between Valley View, Gildersleeve, and Brownstone, but you really can't share staff between the secondary schools and the elementary schools. That's the complicated part of it. Just because the high school and the middle school have a rotating schedule that is
Right, it's different.
very different day to day. And the schedules at Valley View, Gildersleeve, and Brownstone are static. They don't rotate. So that teacher wouldn't be available, to go, like you couldn't be a part-time teacher at Valley View and a part-time teacher at the high school. You might be able to do that with clinician or special education case management, but direct student instruction as a function of the schedule makes that impossible.
Particularly because it's not even a 5-day rotation, it's
Correct.
a 7-day rotation,
That's
so
right.
you know what I mean, like there's no, yeah, I hear that. But I do agree, it's really unfortunate to know that there will be 2 staff members impacted by that decision rather than the one that the FTE could represent.
And I might make one other suggestion, which again I throw it out there, but we can be optimistic. If the board were not comfortable identifying that one library media specialist at currently as the cut, don't say 3 TBD FTE, and let's hope that we can work with the transportation, we can hire younger teachers, and we can study the budget into the spring. So the cut will still be there, but at least we'll be able to get you all comfortable passing a budget to move forward with the process. And really what we're doing is kicking the can on some difficult decisions, but we're doing that anyway with the 2 FTE TBD, right? So again, it sounds to me like, and I'm just trying to, we're not going to make any decisions tonight, but my notes as I walk out of here, and I'm glad Tricia's taking these notes, I'm going to have to watch the video again to remember a lot of this, but it sounds like continue looking at the pay for play, but we don't like it. Look at that special education transportation, 2, right? Move those 2 things back in. Don't forget, Charles, you found $15,000 under the cushion with that placeholder savings. Thank you for that.
Yep.
And don't identify that library media specialist position by title now. Understand that there's 3 FTE TBD that we don't want to name right now. We're going to be optimistic, but understand that we're going to loop back to that later. And that's fair, because let's not also forget, this budget still needs to get through the Board of Selectmen and the voters, right? If additional cuts come, either at the Board of Selectmen level or through a failed referendum, we're back at this again, right? So putting that placeholder in there, and then if everything works out with the budget deliberations going forward, and we encourage and motivate folks to vote without saying how, but the budget prevails, then at some point in May, enrollment will be done. We'll be looking at kindergarten enrollment. We'll be understanding where our hiring has taken us in terms of whether we're hiring new or veteran teachers. We'll have a sense of whether our screams to the state for more ECS funding have fallen on deaf ears or not, or excess cost funding. Dawn will have a better sense of what outplacements may have shifted around. We'll have done more work on the special education transportation, and it might mean we don't cut those 3 FTE TBD. But that's not a promise, that's just an aspiration.
Right. Although I do wonder if you could take the transportation savings and the $15,000 savings and change that to FTE, TBD.
Restore the library media specialist and keep it at 2. If we were to find enough savings between that 15,000 and potential transportation savings, and I mean,
would you like me to bring that back as a proposal for
I would like
Thursday?
that, and frankly, Charles, I hate to put more on your plate, but I also would like to hear whether there's some small potential savings in the secretary bargaining unit, and I fully understand that that's asking a lot, and that's
Rather than
opening us up to
eliminate
some
and
serious
share,
challenges.
You can go to point A, and that still would save some, 30 hours is a point A.
Yeah, I mean, I would think about our district needs and all of that, but I if between those 3 things we were able to find enough to restore that library media specialist position, that one has been really troubling me. I think that all of these positions are.
Okay, so looking for consensus here, and again, no decisions, but what I hear the board asking me is, take the library media specialist off the list.
That's my feeling. I don't know where others are sitting with it, but I do feel strongly
Right.
about that position.
Yeah, but accomplish the savings from that position, so maintain the 4.85 by looking for reductions in the secretary bargaining unit, applying the 15,000 from the placeholder savings that I left off the January 19th memo,
And let's
keeping pay to play and continuing to investigate that, and applying the potential
let's get John Hipsher on the phone.
special ed.
Now, the other thing that I know, but I can't speak specifically to what we would get, there's $40,000 in the budget, the governor's budget. It's going to remain in the budget, and it's to relieve LEAs, us, from the magnet school tuitions. They want to put it back on the state, and apparently, and that was confirmed this morning with Jeff Curry. I don't know what that looks like, and I don't know if that includes VOAG or other tuitions that we pay out to other LEAs. But if that's the case, and 40 million, I don't know how far that goes with 154 districts, but I can't speak to what we would get, but that could be a potential a few $1,000s.
Sure, and hey, that would be adjustments we can make going forward.
That would be, right.
So, again, consensus being the 4.85 number is still the goal, but get us to the 4.85 without the library media specialist position on that list right now.
I would love to hear from other board members. I mean, where are others, how are others feeling about that?
Well, I would say, I feel like this process of selecting individual positions to eliminate or save, and especially individual bargaining units to try and focus on it. You know, we have a superintendent who, you know, like he's saying, he tells us what the FTEs are he needs to accomplish his budget numbers. And we let him work that out. And we not try and keep this process of add this, you know, library media specialist in, or take a secretary out, or it's a tough, I don't know at this level to be negotiating this. And maybe if we had a regular budget process where this board developed the budget alongside the superintendent as a finance committee, maybe some of these conversations would have happened already. But that's just my feeling. I think this is a tough conversation to kind of pick through our individual favorites of what we want to save.
I guess my question is it that FTE for the library media specialist, if that becomes 3 for certified positions to be determined, and we use a wait and see, glass half full approach, sprinkle a little pixie dust and some magic, does that still leaves potential that library media specialist position will be saved? It just means that we're going to make the most for our kids and maybe we won't have to lose all 3 FTEs, but I kind of, in that sense, I do agree with Tim that, you know, to kind of pick and choose. I know that we're all saying it's about FTEs and not people, but there's people in everybody's mind. So does it make anyone feel any better to just for now put that 3 to be determined and put so much more stress on you, but also trust that you, Charles, will determine the.
Well, I gotta just remind everybody a little bit, and Tim, I'm only gonna push back slightly on you, right? Is that the process calls for me to bring you a superintendent's budget, right? And I know this board well enough, because I've worked with you for long enough, that you wouldn't be comfortable if I simply said, well, I'm going to cut $800,000 out of certified faculty. I'll let you know what it is later. Right.
No, that's not how we operate.
I don't think that you would be happy with that. You'd be saying, I want to know what it is, right? So I have to be transparent, and I am. I'm Like, I'm nothing but transparent here. And I've been completely honest with all that. I've had conversations with all these people. I care about these people. I've already had difficult conversations. You see the letters, right? We've got to be transparent. I don't want to sandbag anybody. I don't want to surprise anybody. But I also know that you wouldn't be comfortable if I just, I need $800,000 cut out of this FTE. I know you're going to want to know what, right? And I even knew that this conversation about the TBD was going to come up, because that's the one place I'm saying I'm not telling you what it is. And we've already had this conversation. But the process contemplates, I bring you some budget proposals. You tweak them. You're the board. But you're going to have to vote, and it's going to become the board's budget at that point, right? And when it's the board's budget, I then manage your budget, right? I have to manage your budget, and I'm not going to make decisions about who keeps a job and who doesn't out of your budget.
And I think that's the hard part that I'm having with these. All right, basically between the library media specialist line is 1 FTE. And 2 FTEs under the certified positions line. To me, I don't want to lose any of them, but we don't have, you know what I mean? Right now, we don't have a choice. So do we put those 3 as 3 FTEs, and then we will get more information and know?
And again, that's what I'm suggesting in the superintendent's budget.
I think what's hard is that library media specialist is called out,
right, but
and the other 2 are not.
And I'll remind you one other thing. You could say to me, Charles, thank you for your work on your superintendent's budget. Put the 3 FTE back in and bring a 6.2% budget to the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, right.
And I would do that. And trust me, I would do that happily. Yes, do that. But the ramifications of that, of that difficult conversation then with the Board of Selectmen about how that decision was made, and then, you know, the prospect of a failed referendum when people aren't seeing we've struggled, we've made cuts to try to stay in that reasonable steward of taxpayer dollars place. You're hearing me say I'm concerned about that end of it too, right? Because my communication in the transmittal letter that Laurel and I will write together and provide to the first selectman, which we have to do by next Wednesday, will reflect these difficult conversations and these cuts that have upset our community, that we've heard from audience of citizens and our teachers they're upset about, right? And hey, Board of Selectmen, I've made the hard decisions already, right? Like, you've seen this. If you cut more, we're going to get to a point where we're really up against it, right? So, you know, and again,
the thing is, and I don't mean to interrupt, but we have been fiscally responsible. We have done all the right things with the money. And you know what? So what? Let's do the 6 point whatever, put the 3 positions back in, and let the Board of Selectmen feel some pain and understand that we're not sustainable with 5 damn buildings. I mean, that's part of it. And maybe shared pain is going to be okay. I can go to the taxpayers and say we've done our job correctly. They voted us back in because they thought we were doing a good job, and there's no lack of confidence on the board part to you, Charles. You've done an amazing job of transparency and fiscal responsibility. You know, you have my undying support. But you know what? Maybe the Board of Selectmen, maybe we've got to go in with what we really need, because really at the end of the day, it's about kids. It's about student achievement, and it's about learning. And if we are cutting programs and shortchanging our kids, that's a problem. I have a problem. So put it in for 6 point whatever, and put those 3 positions back in, names unknown, and let's just see what happens and take it to the community and explain. They know the conditions of the buildings. I think enough is enough already.
So,
I mean, that's how I feel. And, I'm blunt. At 75 years of age, I don't have a lot of time to waste on nonsense. So,
Meg, you're going to be kicking fur. I think you'll be here longer
I
than all
hope so.
of us.
I plan to be here till I'm 96.
I also, yes, Yes. And I wanted to add that I want to be careful about the feeling of picking and choosing, because that's truly not what's been driving my mind. What's been driving my mind, and I said it last meeting, and I said it at the previous meeting, is this fifth round of reductions. It's the fifth round of reductions that has me most concerned. These are the positions that I feel are, they were your last go-to. They caused you the most pain for a reason. They will have the most real impact on student learning and student achievement. And that's that 0.5 social studies, the 1 FTE library media specialist, and it was 1 extra FTE of certified, 1 FTE certified TBA, right? On that list was also the ML teacher that we've restored. On that list was the 1 FTE nurse, which we've restored. So it's the remaining things on that list in the fifth round of reduction that have me the most deeply concerned. And if there was a way to handle that last 2.5 FTE in that fifth round, I would be able to sleep better at night and breathe a whole lot easier.
So, Stephanie, can you do some math for us quickly? If we were to add 2.5 FTE back in, that would take us from 4.85 to what?
You gotta give me a minute.
While she's doing that minute, can I just throw one other thought out about trying to find, I'm still just trying to find where else can we look. Software, $153,000 in software. And I'm looking through the list, and I know a lot of what we do, and God bless that we have the technology we do, makes my life so much easier every single day. But are there certain items on here that are they're good for the kids to watch a mystery science lesson online? Like, is it being utilized enough for its value? Are there items on this list that we could chuck $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 off of from software?
Unlikely. The software includes things like PowerSchool, Enterprise, NLWorks. Those. You mean like
the fluff of the, like I said, mystery science, reading easy. Like, are those supplemental? Are they necessary components of the curriculum?
Yeah, I have to go back and look at the list. Some of them definitely are mission critical, right? Those ones that are a function of the curriculum, I'd have to unpack that a little with Eric and dig in. The challenge would be, though, the big ticket items are the ones that are essential. The mystery science and ABC Mouse, I don't know. Those kind of things. Yep.
Great. Can I just jump in?
Yep.
So I appreciate the question, Kim. That number 2 years ago was $210,000. So we have made aggressive software cuts over the past 2 years, and I have intentionally reached out to teachers for any of our softwares that I call big ticket items that are over that $2,000 mark that would make. And teachers have said, please do not take this away from me. It is daily use for my students. So that number represents right now critical softwares. If we did take softwares away, we'd be leaving teachers without instructional resources. The trade-off for that would be we would need to provide them more curriculum writing hours to compensate for how they're going to fill the instructional time in the absence of those softwares.
And we'd probably be printing more paper. Right, Eric? I mean, some of that's like illustrative math or those types of things. Not illustrative. What am I thinking of? Excel math. IXL. Right.
Correct. And I think we see a lot of high cost softwares in our elementary schools, and that supports a stations teaching approach. So where we have classrooms where there's a single teacher, which is the vast majority of our classrooms, especially as we get rid of paraprofessional positions that operate in a general instructional support model. We really don't have those anymore. The way our instruction runs in those classrooms is our teachers work with a small group of kids while other students are working on other standards related options, including softwares that are self-guided. So to take away those softwares strikes at the heart of a stations approach that's fundamental to the way our elementary classrooms operate. I just don't know how we would do it, Kim. Like I said, I appreciate the question, but those softwares have been heavily scrutinized to make sure that we're not funding anything that is not used to the full value of the licenses that we pay for.
Stephanie, did you work your calculator?
Yeah, so was it 2.5 or was it the 3.5? Because it was originally 2.5 and then the librarian. So would it be, if you reinstate all of them, it would be 3.5?
My biggest concerns were that fifth round of reductions. It would have been 1 FTE TBD, 1 FTE library media specialist, and 0.5 social studies.
So it was the additional FTE, so not the original
Yeah,
2.
yeah. If you look at the fifth round reductions on the Google slide.
Yeah. So that would be 5.58. 170,000, 177,750 added back in, up to a 5.58.
Will you say the dollar amount one more time?
170,777.5.
Thank you, Stephanie.
And on a side note, I did already account for the 15,000. He didn't write it in his note, but I already accounted for it in the calculation.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Sorry.
So I just
I didn't want to give expectations.
So you accounted for it, but I forgot the bullet. Gotcha.
Okay. All right.
Closing in on 10. Do you got-
Yeah, where are folks at right now? I mean, what are we, it's getting late. We have another meeting that we can and should take advantage of on Thursday at 5:30. What do folks need? Are you ready to break for this evening? Where are you at? Are we ready to pause this conversation and pick up on Thursday?
I know I am.
Yeah, I hear you, Tim. Yeah.
I think we asked Charles to do 4 things to add things back into the budget and come back to us with a number.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is come back to you with 2 things. Right? I'm going to come back to you with get the 4.85 and put the library media specialist back in, but the secretary, the 15K, the pay for play, and the transportation thing. Right. I'll also come back to you with the 5.58, and I may tweak the 5.58 potentially with the pay for play or the transportation. I mean, Stephanie's talking about adding it all back. So I'll put all this together. You'll get from me tomorrow another
option,
another letter with some ideas. But you know, my big takeaway from this is unless somebody tells me I'm reading the room wrong, is that you feel like the superintendent's 4.85 is too low. You want me to come in higher.
I do.
Okay.
I think you should come in higher. That's my opinion.
I don't think so. Yeah, the record.
I think it's helpful to get a sense of that now before we break.
All right.
That's okay.
I think it should, I think it's gonna have to be higher in order to achieve putting those positions back in. Unless you really do look at software and you start nitpicking line items that we have.
I mean, yeah. I also want to know where there, and we talked about this just now, looking at the secretary unit, looking at transportation, where could we find a little bit of balance to bring us down closer to the 5? But I think that we need a budget that prioritizes student achievement and prioritizes, and this level, the 5th round of reductions is where I really am getting stuck, because it's cutting into our people who interface the most frequently with our students and will have the deepest impact on our students' experience in the Portland schools. And you know, if there's some tweaking and some savings that could be found elsewhere, which is not to say they won't also have a tremendous impact on our district, but maybe not on students in the same way, that I'd like us to find some balance there. Anybody else, final thoughts?
Somewhere between the 4.8 and the 5.5, and my other, I look at budgets a little bit differently because Stephanie and Charles do their magic throughout the year because nothing's going to be staying the same numbers. One's going up, one's going down, so we could, the reality is if we take 3 teachers out and then he comes to us and says we're going to take one out, we say no, he's going to go someplace else to another bucket.
Yep.
Or if we get to no other bucket, he's going to ask for more money from the town. So there's ways around this. I think we try to get too in the weeds sometimes when we realize that we don't have enough information to be there.
That's fair. And don't forget, that's fair because let's not forget, we're planning a budget that we're going to be implementing 18 months from now.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. I mean, literally, we're trying to project out with numbers that are, it's kind of like magic, right? Like, who knows what it's going to be? I mean, and look, and the other piece, and I just want to put this in perspective, the tumult, the changes, the things that are going to happen in our town, state, and nation and world over the next year, we can't even guess at. I mean, who would have guessed that gas would have blown through the roof because a madman in Russia ran tanks into another country? Right? Like, that's what it is. A lot of this is doing our good stewardship, doing our best planning, but understanding it's an uncertain world. Who knows what inflation is going to be? Who knows what gas is going to do? It's just complicated.
Yeah, I think it's a well-made point. Absolutely.
So do the best you can and bring us back something that we can put our name on.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think I
You got
got them out there. I need to go sleep and
Yeah.
get up and go back at it.
All right. Any final words, or shall we move on and pick this up again Thursday?
Can we have comments after?
We'll get there. Yep. All right. Thank you. We're going to move to our committee reports, and let's do our best to keep them brief. All right. Curriculum is up first. Kim and Stacy, help me. This was a big meeting we had last week with Eric, and we were joined by 2 teachers from the high school as well as Kate Lawson. And Kate spoke with us about some recommended changes to graduation requirements that will be that the committee supported and has asked to be sent to policy. So that will be those will be visiting policy next before they come to the full board. We had a math teacher who talked to us about a proposed math pathways program for students whose IEPs determine that they need access to math curriculum in a slightly different way than we are currently offering it. So that proposal will be coming to the board. And there was a proposal for a shift in our English language arts curriculum for English 12 to go from a full year to a half year course to allow second semester seniors more flexibility in English electives. So that proposal will be coming to the board. There was a brief update on K-3 literacy. Was there anything I missed?
No, I think you did great.
It was a really good meeting, lots of substance. I think we'll be hearing about all of that in February. Policy.
Next meeting is February 14th, I believe, and we've got a lot on our plate.
We'll be talking about graduation requirements. Yeah. Personnel did not meet. Yes. Buildings and grounds.
Did not meet.
Crack.
Went last week. I have a PowerPoint that I can share with the board, and just going along their budget, they made their audit. They didn't have any issues. That was a good thing. And there's a new superintendent starting in June, and Tim, and I can't think of his last name right now, is retiring. So there's some changes in personnel.
Board of Selectmen.
Nothing significant.
Okay. Committee on Solidarity. I believe we don't have a liaison currently. Equity and Inclusion Coalition.
We'll be meeting in February. Eric included something in his report.
That's right. right, audience of citizens. Do we have anyone with us?
Just, if I could say, just not to belabor thing, just, I was appointed recently for youth services
You're
liaison, but is not on there, so maybe we could put that on.
We will add that back on, Tim. Thanks for the reminder.
They had a meeting today that I wasn't able to attend, but.
Okay, so we'll make sure that's on there for our February meeting. Thank you.
I went and I have the calendar for you. I'll put it in the mail to you if you want, or drop it off at the house in your mailbox. But they gave us a calendar last night, or tonight.
Oh, even just take a picture and text it
Oh, I
to
can
me,
do
it's
that.
fine.
I will do that.
Yeah, that would be cool. No, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, yeah, we'll get that taken care of with Tricia. All right, audience of citizens. Do we have anyone with us in person who would like to address the board at this time?
Alicia Strong, 381 Gospel Lane. Just a quick comment. Whatever is decided, I'm not sure what the board can provide in terms of information, things that we can pass out. I know you as a board can't tell us how to vote or try to persuade us how to vote, but as parents and as very busy people, I think a lot of people just aren't aware. Or there may be people who, if they can just see black and white what is being cut, even if we do increase to 5%, I think that would be super helpful. And I would rely on the community to help all of you get that word out. It's not just on you. We're happy to help in any way we can. And there's just been a lot of talk about the selectmen and them being upset. And there is no frills in this budget. So as far as I'm concerned, no one should even be worried about what he has to say because we also voted for him. And our children are really important. So if we're going to propose what is the best for our kids, it may be an uncomfortable number. But if that's truly what you feel as a board, then have him turn it down. Have him say the hard things. Have him be the one that we all have to go to and send our emails to. Because in the end, these cuts are not for the faint of heart. And I really do appreciate all of you, your words tonight, listening to all of you discuss everything. It was great being here. I know a lot of us attend on Zoom, but really appreciate your time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Jessica Rosenthal, 8 Edwards Road. I just want to say I was really nervous coming to this meeting tonight, but hearing all you on the board kind of echo our sentiments as parents is really comforting, knowing that we're going in the right direction. So I agree with Meg. Get the bigger budget in front of the selectmen and let's make the right decisions for our kids going forward. But again, I appreciate that we're looking at all different angles, and it really does make me feel better that this board does have our children's hearts and best interests. So thank you for that, and we'll see you again on Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll bring the chocolate.
Is there anybody else who wishes to comment either in person or online?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, I'm Alicia Holloway, 24 Foley Road. Thank you so much for sharing my letter that I sent earlier. I wanted to echo Alicia Strong's sentiment also that we as a community, I think Portland's unique where we have a lot of staff members who are also residents. I, speaking for myself, am willing to put in the legwork in the community to get the word out, even if we do go, and I strongly recommend going with a higher percentage. I will put in the legwork myself to go out into the community and help to raise awareness and bring people to the voting booths. So trust in the community to do that, give us the information, and we'll run with it.
Thank you, Alicia.
I have another one.
Sure. Oh, we can't hear you. I didn't realize you were speaking.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
I would like to voice my support for the board member who suggested the higher number. As previous members there also said the same thing. Did you guys get guidance from the Board of Selectmen to go with the lowest number you could get to?
So, okay, so.
I think people are supposed to identify themselves.
Yeah, pause real quick. Do you mind?
I did before the mic was working. Sorry. Gerald Bakri, 577 Main Street.
Thank you. So Gerald, we're not able to answer questions about this at this point, but please feel free to reach out by email to Dr. Britton or to myself, to the board. We're happy to answer questions by email to address your questions. If we're just not, our bylaws don't permit us to go have a back and forth during public comment.
Okay, so again, just want to voice my opinion for a higher number. I mean, you guys seem to be very reluctant with making your cuts to your employees, making cuts to, paper plate programs and everything like that. I mean, you spent the last 2 hours trying to squeeze blood out of a rock, and, you've made cuts to the bone, So, again, it is just watching you guys struggle for the last 2 hours. My wife's over here, crying herself. She's like, we have kids, and everybody's getting fired. What's going on? Yes, I see you laughing. Humor is the spice of life and all that. But again,
laughing so I don't cry.
Ultimately, it's the voters' choice. We voted the Board of Selectmen in, as the previous person said that she was there. Bring the number that you guys feel comfortable with. Bring the number that will make you feel good. Not feeling so bad about making these cuts. Not feeling so bad about not being able to provide equity to kids that want to play. You mentioned going door to door to ask people about, hey, can you afford to come play? I mean, that's a horrible feeling to want to even mention that.
You're right.
All right? I mean, this is not how this should run. All right? Make the choices that you feel comfortable with. Bring them to the Board of Selectmen. Let the people in town make that decision. We will talk to them. We will email them, whatever needs to be done. People in this town do care for the school system. We care for our children. We have moved to this town for the services you provide. Some young couples have moved in this town because we like the school system here. We like the amenities. We like the new park that we just built.
Thank you.
Make the choice that works for you. Make the choice that works for all of us. Thank you. Have a good night. And thank you for your hard work. And hopefully you get home at a decent time and get some sleep.
Thank you.
Have a good night, guys.
You too. Are there any other final commenters this evening? No, okay, thank you. We're going to move on to Board of Ed member comments, and we will start over here and work our way around. Stacy?
Tapped out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have anything left. Thank you. I love the description, squeezing blood out of a rock. I just, really, that's what it felt like. So, thank you, Gerald. Let's go home.
Yep. Tim, any comments?
I'm tapped out as well.
I hear you. Sarah?
Appreciation for everybody who came to speak, because it can be intimidating, and I'm very glad to hear from citizens what they think and what they would like their Board of Education to do on behalf of them. Thank you.
Kim?
Same thanks to everybody who's been so supportive and speaking up. I'm definitely struggling. So, tough budget.
Yeah.
I'm good.
You're good?
Yeah.
All right. I have, just very briefly, tomorrow at 11 a.m., CABE is offering a webinar, the board's role in advocacy, and it's an hour-long Zoom webinar. If you have a few minutes in your workday and want to tune in, it's timely, and given what we're facing with the state, I think, it could be worth it. I'm hoping I can tune in. CABE is also hosting the Area 8 Legislative Breakfast. That's our area and includes our legislators. It's Thursday morning this week at 9 a.m. in Westbrook. Meg, you're signed up to go, yeah?
I'm going, yep.
You're going as well? I'm trying to go. And I haven't heard whether Norma or Christy will be there, but...
I reached out to both offices, and so did the people from the Westbrook.
Yeah.
And so did Lindsay.
But it should be a good conversation, and we're not alone in the struggles that we're facing, and I know that we'll be hearing from Board of Ed members from throughout this whole district about challenges related to their budgets, our budget. So I just wanted to mention those two briefly. I am extremely grateful for our community members who came and spoke up tonight. I am extremely grateful, Charles, for you and Stephanie and the administrative team and all of the hard work that goes into this. And I know that we're putting even more on your plate with our requests, but I am so thankful for the work that you're doing. And frankly, I am thankful for each of you on the board for the conversation that we're having. And I just really appreciate each of you and your thoughtfulness and your good questions.
I can't say enough about advocacy because we have been for a long time bobbleheads when it comes to what's happening in Hartford. And it was very telling this morning on a 20-minute call. That was all they gave us to talk about reading and diversification of personnel and mental health services being continued, and kindergarten registration. It was insulting to think that we could do it in 20 minutes, but we all need all of you and all of us being advocates, and I can't speak enough to that. We can't be bobbleheads anymore.
All right. We do not have any executive session this evening. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Thank you, Meg. Is there a second? Seconded by Sarah. All in favor? Aye. Everybody please get home safely.
Yeah.
It's nice, yeah.
See,